Subscribe for more amazing novel audiobooks. Don't forget to like, comment, and share Infinite Novel Audio Chapter 1. Soul returns to the spirit. The system first appears Spirit Hall. Where? Where is this? Intense, stabbing pain exploded at his temples, forcing a low groan from him as he subconsciously raised a hand to cover his forehead. His vision gradually focused from a blur, revealing an incredibly luxurious ceiling. Holding his forehead, he slowly sat up and looked around. What is this place? He muttered to himself, trying to grasp a clue from his chaotic mind. Just then, fragments of memory flooded in like a tide, carrying an overwhelming impact. Spirit Hall, Supreme Pontiff, N.A.N. Bibai Dong, N.A.N. N.A.N. Dailiu. Countless images flashed before his eyes. The towering Spirit Hall, the solemn Supreme Pontiff Palace, that majestic golden-haired old man, that purple-haired woman with complex eyes, and a golden-haired little girl as exquisite as carved pink jade. I am N.A.N. The memories fused together, born from the womb, a rebirth as N.A.N. For some reason, his memories had been under a seal. It was only today that they had been restored. I am myself, and I am also N.A.N. This thought exploded in his mind like a thunderclap, making his whole body shake. He abruptly looked down at his hands. These were the hands of a middle-aged man, with distinct knuckles and thin calluses on the palms from years of holding a sword, yet they were well-maintained, exuding the elegance of someone who had long held a high position. He staggered to a large floor-to-ceiling mirror in the corner of the room, and the figure reflected in the mirror made his breath hitch. It was a man dressed in magnificent Supreme Pontiff robes, with long golden hair draped over his shoulders and a handsome face that carried a hint of gloom. I actually became that short-lived ghost, N.A.N. The corner of the man's mouth in the mirror twitched uncontrollably, his eyes filled with bitterness and bewilderment. As a reader who had once read Duoluo Continent thoroughly, he knew the fate of the character N.A.N. all too well. Coveting Bibai Dong, eventually being heavily wounded by Tang Hao, and then being completely finished off by the long-enduring Bibai Dong after returning to Spirit Hall, ending up without even a corpse. He was a textbook example of tragedy. He took a deep breath, forced himself to calm down, and began to organize the memories belonging to N.A.N. as well as the knowledge from the original work. N.A.N. had just completed her spirit awakening yesterday. That ultimate six-winged angel spirit was undoubtedly a talent rarely seen in the N.A.N. family for thousands of years. And right now, the Haitian twin stars of the Clear Sky sect, Tang Hao and Tang Xiao, were still wandering the continent with that blue-silver emperor, N.A.N. The catastrophe that would change everything had not yet arrived, Bibai Dong. The woman deeply hurt by N.A.N. was currently undergoing purgatory-like tempering in Slaughter City. Nothing had reached an irreversible point yet. Nothing has happened yet. There's still a chance. He looked at himself in the mirror, his gaze gradually becoming firm. Since he had recovered his memories, he could not repeat the same mistakes. N.A.N.'s fated path was a dead end, but he could rewrite it all. However, when the name Bibai Dong surfaced in his mind, a wave of complex emotions instantly surged into his heart. Hidden at the very depths was a sliver of cold-killing intent that even he was unwilling to admit. His gaze suddenly became sharp as a knife, piercing straight toward the direction of Slaughter City. Just then, a cold, mechanical notification sounded in his mind, followed by a mature, sisterly female voice that spoke with a hint of laziness. Ding, system loading. Children feedback system successfully bound. N.A.N. was stunned, a flash of astonishment in his eyes. System. Children feedback, he asked subconsciously. How does it provide feedback? The mature voice sounded again, explaining clearly. If the host's children obtain an opportunity or increase their strength, the host will receive corresponding feedback. The feedback effect has a critical hit rate of 1 to 10 times. Currently bindable personnel, N.A.N. Do you wish to bind, N.A.N.? The image of the little girl who had just awakened her spirit yesterday, with short golden hair and looking like a little angel, immediately appeared in N.A.N.'s mind. That was his, N.A.N.'s daughter, and also the future successor of the angel god. That goes without saying, bind. Bind quickly. He blurted it out almost without hesitation, his tone unable to hide his excitement. He had been worrying about how to quickly increase his strength and change his fate. This system was like a pillow being delivered just as he was nodding off. A look of pleasant surprise instantly blossomed on his face. Binding successful, the mature voice sounded at the right time. Since this is the host's first binding, the binding personnel N.A.N Renksu is specially rewarded with an increased feedback critical hit rate of 1 to 10 times. Furthermore, for every major realm N.A.N Renksu breaks through, the host will receive a treasure chest. Detected that the binding personnel N.A.N Renksu's current spirit power rank is 20, meeting the reward conditions. A total of 2 treasure chests have been obtained. Open them immediately. Open them all, N.A.N Zunji said without hesitation. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 illusory gates of light seemed to appear before his eyes. Then, 2 treasure chests emitting a soft golden light slowly emerged. With a light click, the chest lids popped open, and 2 streaks of light flew out, turning into 2 lines of information that entered his mind. Obtained items. Beast Control Ring ×3. Effect. Can be worn by a spirit beast to subtly influence its thoughts. Indestructible by non-divine rank power. Can obscure a spirit beast's aura, undetectable by non-divine rank beings. Obtained items. God-bestowed spirit ring ×9. Effect. Contains pure sacred energy, can be directly absorbed by a spirit with no side effects. Looking at the descriptions of these 2 items, N.A.N Zunji's eyes widened, his face filled with unbelievable ecstasy. Putting the beast control ring aside for a moment, that God-bestowed spirit ring was practically tailor-made for N.A.N Renksu. With this, N.A.N Renksu wouldn't have to worry about being unable to withstand it when absorbing a spirit ring, nor would she need to go through the trouble of hunting spirit beasts. It was a truly heaven-defying opportunity. Sister system, how generous. He couldn't help but praise, his smile as bright as sunshine, the previous gloom and worry seemingly swept away. Friendly reminder, the system's mature voice sounded again. When the bound personnel absorbs items that increase strength, such as spirit rings or spirit bones, the host will receive corresponding feedback. N.A.N Zunji's heart stirred, and he quickly followed up. What about a god position? Can I get feedback if she inherits a god position? Yes. The system gave a positive answer. As long as it is an opportunity that can increase the bound personnel's strength, regardless of the form, the host can receive feedback. Hearing this, N.A.N Zunji's breath hitched, and his gaze instantly became incredibly fervent. God position feedback. That was a god position. If N.A.N Renksu successfully inherited the angel god position, the feedback he would receive would be unimaginable. He clenched his fists tightly, his knuckles turning slightly white from the force, his expression filled with infinite longing for the future. With a thought, he stored the beast control rings and God-bestowed spirit rings into the system space, and then his expression suddenly changed as if he had remembered something. "Oh no, this is bad," he cried out softly, no longer caring about anything else. His figure flashed, and he rushed out of the room like an arrow from a bow, speeding toward a certain direction in Spirit Hall. The wind whistled in his ears, and his golden supreme pontiff robes fluttered loudly behind him, his face filled with anxiety. Enshrinement Hall on the plaza, N.A.N Dailiu was standing there. He was dressed in simple white robes, his long silver-white hair moving without wind, his whole body exuding an unfathomable aura. Standing before him was a small figure. It was a little girl of about 6 years old, wearing a pure white dress, with a pair of clear golden eyes that were currently looking at N.A.N Dailiu with a hint of expectation. She was N.A.N Renksu. "Xiao Zhu, are you ready? We are going to obtain your first spirit ring now." N.A.N Dailiu's voice was gentle, filled with affection for his junior. N.A.N Renksu nodded vigorously, her little face full of seriousness. Grandpa, I'm ready." Her voice was crisp and tender, as pleasant as wind chimes. As soon as she finished speaking, N.A.N Dailiu lightly raised a hand, and a gentle wave of spirit power supported N.A.N Renksu's body. N.A.N Renksu felt her feet lighten, and her small body slowly floated up, about half a meter off the ground. She widened her eyes slightly, feeling the wonderful sensation of being lifted by spirit power, a hint of curiosity and excitement appearing on her little face. Just as Kayan Dailiu was about to set off with Kayan Renksu, an urgent voice came from behind. "Father, stop, don't go." Hearing the voice, Kayan Dailiu turned around and saw Kayan Zunji flying toward them at high speed. With a few bounds, he landed steadily on the plaza, his face still carrying lingering anxiety. "Papa." When Kayan Renksu saw Kayan Zunji, her eyes lit up, and she called out crisply, a look of innocent joy appearing on her little face as her floating body leaned slightly forward. "Xiao Zhu," Kayan Zunji responded. When his gaze fell on his daughter, the anxiety in his eyes faded slightly, replaced by a bit of softness. Kayan Dailiu looked at his son who had arrived in such a hurry, his brow furrowing slightly as he asked with some confusion, "Jir, is there something wrong?" Hearing the name Jir, Kayan Zunji's face instantly darkened. His brow knitted, the corners of his mouth turned down, and a flash of imperceptible awkwardness crossed his eyes. Although he knew this was Kayan Dailiu's normal way of addressing his son, he still felt a bit uncomfortable. He composed himself, looked at Kayan Dailiu, and said solemnly, "Father, Xiao Zhu is the most talented descendant of our Kayan family in thousands of years. Don't you think an ordinary spirit ring is unworthy of her?" Hearing this, Kayan Dailiu pondered for a moment and said slowly, "Jir, Xiao Zhu is exceptionally talented, indeed extraordinary. But precisely because of that, there is no need to waste time on body refining just to chase the limit of a century or two for a spirit ring. Our Kayan family has the angel god trial. The increase in the age of spirit rings is inevitable. There's no need to be overly persistent about such minor details." But Kayan Zunji shook his head, his gaze firm and his tone confident. "Father, I am certain that I can make Xiao Zhu's physical body strength, mental force strength, and spirit power purity all undergo a qualitative leap in a short period of time." His gaze burned as he looked at Kayan Dailiu, his face full of conviction. Seeing the unprecedented determination in his son's eyes, Kayan Dailiu couldn't help but hesitate. He was silent for a moment, his gaze scanning back and forth between Kayan Zunji and Kayan Renksu, before finally looking at Kayan Zunji and asking in a deep voice, "Jir, are you really sure?" "No problem, father, I am absolutely certain," Kayan Zunji replied decisively. Kayan Dailiu gave him a deep look, seemingly judging the credibility of his words. After a moment, he finally nodded, turned around, and said to Kayan Renksu, who was still floating in the air, "Xiao Zhu, Grandpa will take you to hunt for your spirit ring in a while, okay?" Kayan Renksu blinked her large golden eyes, looking at her grandfather and then at her father. Although she didn't quite understand why they had suddenly changed their minds, she still nodded obediently, her soft voice sounding out, "Okay, I'll listen to Grandpa." Kayan Dailiu smiled with relief and raised his hand to withdraw the spirit power supporting Kayan Renksu. Kayan Renksu's little feet landed steadily on the ground. She looked up at Kayan Zunji, her little face full of curiosity. Kayan Dailiu said no more, turned and walked into the enshrinement hall, his figure quickly disappearing into the depths of the hall. Only the father and daughter, Kayan Zunji and Kayan Renksu, remained on the plaza. "Xiao Zhu, come, let's go to the library. Tomorrow I'll take you somewhere fun." Kayan Zunji bent down and looked at the exquisite little girl before him, his tone softening considerably. "Somewhere fun." Kayan Renksu's eyes instantly lit up like two twinkling stars. She tilted her little head, her short golden hair shining in the sunlight, her face full of expectation. "Where is this fun place? Is there candy?" Seeing his daughter's adorable appearance, Kayan Zunji's heart couldn't help but soften. He reached out and gently took Kayan Renksu's soft little hand. The little girl's hand was warm and soft, like a ball of cotton. "You'll know when we get there. I promise you'll like it." He smiled and led Kayan Renksu toward the Spirit Hall's library. The sunlight spilled over the father and daughter, casting two long shadows. Kayan Zunji looked down at the little figure skipping beside him, feeling a surge of emotion in his heart. He truly hadn't expected that he would become Kayan Zunji and even have such an adorable daughter. In the original work, Kayan Renksu's fate was full of hardships and tragedy, living her whole life in calculation and disguise. What a pity, he sighed softly in his heart, but then he shook his head again, his gaze becoming gentle. However, gaining such an adorable daughter seems quite nice too. This time, he would never let the tragedy happen, whether for himself or for the pure and innocent little angel beside him. He had to firmly grasp this opportunity and rewrite everyone's fate. Chapter 2. Ice and fire yin-yang. Well above the ice and fire yin-yang well mist swirled, and a faint, strange aura permeated the air. Kyan Zunji carried Kyan Renksu on his back. Her small figure leaned against his shoulder, her golden hair brushing against his neck as her eyes curiously scanned the rolling white mist below. Chrysanthemum, Duluo Yu Guan, and Ghost, Duluo Gui, May followed closely behind. Both had solemn expressions, their gazes alertly sweeping over the dangerous-looking area below. "Your Holiness," Chrysanthemum Duluo's voice carried a hint of hesitation as he looked down at the surging tide of white toxic gas, his brows furrowed. "The area below is filled with poisonous miasma. If we aren't careful, it will invade our bodies. Are we really going down?" A meaningful curve formed at the corner of Kyan Zunji's mouth, his smile carrying a trace of unfathomable eeriness. "Let's go down, Ju. Once we're down there, you'd better restrain yourself. Don't touch things recklessly." Chrysanthemum Duluo was taken aback, the hesitation on his face instantly replaced by astonishment, the Supreme Pontiff's smile. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed a bit unusual. He had been by Kyan Zunji's side for many years, but had never seen him show such an expression. The confusion in his heart grew, but he didn't dare ask more. He could only respond sheepishly, though a hint of curiosity and anticipation flashed in his eyes. Kyan Zunji said no more. The spirit power within him surged abruptly, and pale golden energy instantly spread out, forming a massive energy shield that enveloped himself, Kyan Renksu on his back, and the two Duluos behind him. The surface of the energy shield shimmered with flowing light, emitting a holy aura. He led everyone as they slowly flew toward the ice and fire yin-yang well below, the poisonous miasma that had been swirling around, deadly to the touch, seemed to meet its nemesis the moment it contacted the energy shield. It parted to both sides, revealing an unobstructed path, not daring to touch the shield at all. The further down they went, the more bizarre the temperature became. At times, it was as scorching as a furnace, at others, as frigid as an ice cellar. These two extreme auras intertwined and collided, forming unique energy turbulences. Passing through layers of miasma, the full view of the ice and fire yin-yang well finally unfolded before them. Before them was a dreamlike secret realm. At its center was a strange spring. Half of it was a fiery red, churning with rising steam and emitting high temperatures capable of incinerating everything. The other half was a frozen azure, congealing with bone-chilling cold. Around the spring grew various exotic flowers and herbs never seen before. Each one emitted a dense life aura, appearing vibrant under the nourishment of the ice and fire yin-yang well, yet possessing a somewhat eerie beauty. However, a faint power of illusion also lingered within this secret realm. As soon as Chrysanthemum Duluo stepped into this place, his gaze was drawn to those strange flowers and herbs. In particular, several immortal herbs that closely resembled chrysanthemums made it impossible for him to look away. His gaze gradually became obsessed, and his feet subconsciously moved forward. A satisfied smile even appeared on his lips. It was as if he were in a paradise of chrysanthemums. Even the spirit power around him began to stir uncontrollably, faintly showing a tendency to resonate with those plants. "Wow," Kyan Renksu poked her small head out from Kyan Zunji's back. Looking at the half-red, half-blue spring and the colorful plants around it, she let out a cry of wonder. Her eyes were clear, seemingly unaffected by the illusion, simply captivated by the wondrous sight before her. Kyan Zunji landed steadily and set Kyan Renksu down. He crouched to look at her. "Zio Zhu, it's very dangerous here. You must stay put and watch quietly. No running around, understood?" Kyan Renksu nodded vigorously, her little face full of obedience. Zio Zhu will be good and won't run around. Although she was curious, her father's words always made her obey. By then, Chrysanthemum Duoluo's gaze was firmly locked onto an immortal herb not far away. It was over 10 feet tall, entirely golden, with petals layered like sharp swords, the miraculous glazed sky chrysanthemum. That immortal herb emitted a majestic life energy and the ultimate essence of a chrysanthemum. His breathing became rapid, his eyes widened, and his face was filled with unbelievable ecstasy. His body trembled slightly, and he could barely control the urge to rush forward, murmuring, "It's it. It's actually it." Ghost Duoluo on the side was much calmer, but looking at the immortal herbs emitting startling auras around them, a flash of shock and greed also crossed his eyes, though he hid it well. Ahem. Kyan Zunji coughed twice, interrupting Chrysanthemum Duoluo's obsession. He glanced at that miraculous glazed sky chrysanthemum and said to Chrysanthemum Duoluo, "Ju, collect all the mature immortal herbs and spiritual plants here. This miraculous glazed sky chrysanthemum belongs to you. Also, find a suitable immortal herb for Gui." Chrysanthemum Duoluo snapped out of it, the obsession on his face instantly replaced by excitement. He dropped to one knee with a thud. Bowing deeply to Kyan Zunji, his voice trembled with excessive excitement. "Thank you, Supreme Pontiff, this subordinate. This subordinate will not let you down." His eyes reddened slightly. Obtaining a treasure like the miraculous glazed sky chrysanthemum was a massive blessing to him. This kindness increased his loyalty to Kyan Zunji by several degrees. Kyan Renksu reached out a small finger and gently poked the energy shield in front of her. Looking up at Kyan Zunji, she asked, "Father, can't this shiny shield be taken back? Xiao Zhu wants to touch those flowers." "No, Xiao Zhu," Kyan Zunji shook his head and explained patiently. "The ice and fire energy here is too violent. Your body can't handle it yet. This energy shield protects you. When you grow up and your strength increases, you'll be able to touch them." Kyan Renksu blinked, seemingly understanding but not quite. Although a bit disappointed, she obediently withdrew her hand and stopped mentioning touching the plants, simply watching Chrysanthemum Duoluo's busy figure with wide, curious eyes. Kyan Zunji's gaze fell on Chrysanthemum Duoluo, watching him carefully collect the immortal herbs while thinking to himself. Yesterday, he had specifically gone to the library and thoroughly studied the 1,000 Herbs Manual. Becoming well-versed in the characteristics and values of various immortal herbs, the immortal herbs here were too precious. Although Chrysanthemum Duoluo's heart nature wasn't bad, it was inevitable he might have selfish thoughts and want to hide one or two. Now that he knew these immortal herbs like the back of his hand, the other man naturally wouldn't dare to play any tricks. Several hours passed quietly, and Chrysanthemum Duoluo finally finished sorting all the mature immortal herbs and spiritual plants. Holding 3 spirit tools of different styles, he walked up to Kyan Zunji and respectfully presented them. "Lord Supreme Pontiff, except for the 2 immortal herbs in the center of the ice and fire yin-yang, well, that cannot be collected. The rest of the immortal herbs, high-grade spiritual plants, and low-grade spiritual plants have been placed in these 3 spirit tools respectively. Please have a look." Kyan Zunji took the spirit tools, gave them a casual glance and tucked them away. He said calmly, "You too find a place to absorb your immortal herbs." "Yes, Lord Supreme Pontiff," Chrysanthemum Duoluo and Ghost Duoluo replied in unison, their faces unable to hide their excitement. The two exchanged a glance. Each chose a relatively quiet corner with dense spiritual kai, sat cross-legged, took out their own immortal herbs, and began to circulate spirit power to absorb them. The miraculous glazed sky chrysanthemum in Chrysanthemum Duoluo's hand burst with light, enveloping his entire person. Ghost Duoluo's immortal herb emitted a dark aura, perfectly matching his spirit's characteristics. Kyan Zunji then took Kyan Renksu to the edge of the ice and fire yin-yang well's spring. He gazed at the 2 immortal herbs in the spring, whose auras were clearly suitable for Xiao Zhu to absorb, a flash of satisfaction in his eyes. He slowly extended his spirit power, carefully picking the 2 immortal herbs from the spring one by one and placing them together. The ice and fire energies blended with each other. "Xiao Zhu, eat them." Kyan Zunji handed the immortal herbs in his palm to Kyan Renksu. Kyan Renksu hesitated for a moment, looked up at her father's encouraging gaze, then reached out her small hand, took the herbs, and tentatively took a small bite. The sweet juice dissolved in her mouth, carrying a warm energy that flowed through her body, making her narrow her eyes comfortably. It's sweet, her eyes lit up, and she no longer hesitated, eating the immortal herbs bite by bite. Once the herbs entered her stomach, they instantly transformed into a massive yet gentle energy that spread through her body. Her small body trembled slightly. She sat cross-legged, closed her eyes, and her little face flushed slightly due to the energy flow. That energy was like a trickling stream, nourishing her limbs and bones, flushing her meridians, and even starting to permeate her spirit origin. Fine beads of sweat gradually appeared on her forehead, and her short golden hair was damp with sweat, sticking to her cheeks, but her breathing remained steady as she clearly worked hard to guide the energy. Kyan Zunji sat cross-legged beside her, his hands against her back, as pure spirit power from his body continuously flowed into her, helping her comb through that massive energy, making it easier for her body to absorb and avoiding the danger of energy collisions. An hour later, Chrysanthemum Duluo and Ghost Duluo opened their eyes almost simultaneously. A powerful spirit power fluctuation erupted from Chrysanthemum Duluo. Feeling the unprecedented power within him, he couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice, "Rank 94, I'm now rank 94. If this continues, reaching rank 96 in the future isn't impossible." His face was full of excitement, his tone brimming with anticipation for the future. "Keep it down." Ghost Duluo glanced at him coldly, signaling him to look toward Kyan Zunji, reminding him not to disturb the Supreme Pontiff. Chrysanthemum Duluo then realized and quickly covered his mouth, a sheepish smile on his face. He made a shushing gesture to Ghost Duluo, but the excitement in his eyes didn't fade at all. After several more hours, Kyan Renksu finally opened her eyes slowly. She moved her small body, stretching her arms and legs, feeling the power surging within her. Her little face was radiant with excitement as she cried out in a clear voice, "Papa, I feel like my body is so strong now. I have so much more strength, and my spirit seems to have become stronger too." As she spoke, her spirit power stirred slightly, and a faint phantom of a six-winged angel appeared behind her. Though still immature, it was much more solid than before, and the holy aura it emitted was denser. Seeing her vibrant appearance, a gratified smile appeared on Kyan Zunji's face. "It seems these immortal herbs suit you well. You did great, Xiao Zhu." Just then, the system's voice rang in his mind, detected that bound person. Kyan Renksu's talent has improved and spirit has been strengthened. Triggered 1x critical hit. Kyan Zunji's brow twitched slightly. He thought to himself, 1x, what kind of luck is this? Just as he finished speaking, the system's voice rang again. Second critical hit beginning, triggered 3x critical hit. Total of 2 critical hits, 3x. Host's talent has improved, physical body strength has improved, and spirit has been strengthened. A majestic energy instantly flooded Kyan Zunji's limbs and bones, and his aura began to climb rapidly. Behind him, the six-winged angel spirit phantom boomed into existence, more solid and majestic than ever. 6 pairs of wings unfurled, causing the energy within the entire ice and fire yin-yang well to become restless. He could clearly feel his spirit power bottleneck being easily broken like paper. He instantly stepped into the rank 96 Super Duluo realm. Congratulations to the Supreme Pontiff on reaching the rank 96 Super Duluo realm. Feeling this terrifying aura, Chrysanthemum Duluo and Ghost Duluo quickly stepped forward and bowed respectfully, their faces full of awe. Looking at the majestic six-winged angel phantom behind her father, Kyan Renksu's face was full of admiration. She clapped and cheered. "Father is so amazing." Kyan Zunji withdrew his aura, and the spirit phantom slowly dissipated. Feeling the powerful strength within him, he was filled with emotion. He thought to himself, "Stuck at rank 95 for 3 whole years, and today I finally broke through. Speaking of which, the talent of this body really was a bit lacking. If it weren't for the child feedback system, relying solely on my own cultivation, I wouldn't know how long I'd have to wait to break through, but it doesn't matter now. As long as Xiao Zhu can continue to grow, reaching godhood in the future, or even surpassing the divine rank is not impossible. He looked at N.A.N. Rengsu, whose face was full of admiration, his eyes filled with expectation. This game of chess has only just begun. Chapter 3. The Angel Cultivation Plan Enshrinement Hall. A little blonde girl with short legs ran behind N.A.N. Dailiu, her small body trembling slightly as if she were hiding from something. Following her, N.A.N. Zunji walked in slowly, holding 2 stalks of spiritual plants that emitted a faint spiritual glow. Looking at the little one hiding behind N.A.N. Dailiu, he smiled helplessly. Xiao Zhu, come here. This is good stuff. Why are you running? N.A.N. Rengsu poked her small head out from behind N.A.N. Dailiu's wide sleeves, her golden eyes looking at him pitifully. Clutching her chubby little belly with her small hands, she said in a childish voice, "Grandpa, I'm already full. Look, my tummy is all round." N.A.N. Dailiu looked down at his great-granddaughter's bulging belly, then looked up and glared at N.A.N. Zunji. His tone carried a hint of reproach. "Dear, Xiao Zhu is still so young. If you keep giving her supplements every day like this, what if it ruins her health?" The smile on N.A.N. Zunji's face remained unchanged, but his tone was full of certainty. "Father, it won't. I'm giving Xiao Zhu spiritual plants that consolidate the foundation and nurture the origin. They aren't harmful at all. You also know that Xiao Zhu hasn't added a spirit ring yet. We can take advantage of the fact that she's restricted by the lack of a spirit ring and cannot break through to a higher realm to lay a solid foundation and compress her spirit power." He paused, listing the results of the past 3 months. In the 3 months since returning, she has been eating spiritual plants and whale marrow every day. She has even consumed 5 immortal herbs. Look, hasn't she grown quite a bit taller? Her physical body strength has even reached the spirit ancestor level, and her mental force has soared directly to the spirit emperor level because she took the gaze through autumn waters dew. Her spirit power has been compressed 3 times, with each compression increasing its intensity by 40%. This is only possible because of Xiao Zhu's extraordinary talent. Even you only managed 3 compressions, with each only increasing spirit power intensity by 30%. At this point, his tone carried a hint of pride. What an opportunity this is. What other child could have such cultivation conditions? N.A.N. Dailiu fell silent. He looked at N.A.N. Rengsu's noticeably more developed little body and felt the faintly surging spirit power within her, far more refined and thick than that of children her age, and a flicker of emotion crossed his eyes. He had seen his granddaughter's changes with his own eyes. Her growth over the past 3 months was indeed staggering. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say she had been reborn. His original worries seemed truly redundant. Grandpa Tilda. Seeing that N.A.N. Dailiu remained silent, N.A.N. Rengsu reached out her small hand and gently tugged at his robe, her little face full of playfulness. N.A.N. Dailiu's heart softened at his great-granddaughter's tug, and he sighed, his tone softening. "All right, Xiao Zhu is still young. There's no rush to increase her strength right now. Let's wait a few days before giving her these herbs." Upon hearing this, a relieved smile immediately appeared on N.A.N. Rengsu's face, her eyes curving into 2 little crescents. She even stuck her tongue out at N.A.N. Zunji, clearly resistant to the idea of taking medicine. N.A.N. Zunji shook his head helplessly and asked instead, "By the way, Father, did any of the enshriners break through after taking the immortal herbs from before? It's not that fast." N.A.N. Dailiu said calmly, "Although immortal herbs are miraculous, the energy they contain is still too little for titled Duoluo above rank 96. They can only serve as a catalyst for a breakthrough. However, it did give them hope. They are all currently in secluded cultivation. If nothing goes wrong, N.A.N. Jun, Jiang Mo, and Location should be able to break through with them. As for the others, it's hard to say. At least for the next few years, there's likely little hope." N.A.N. Zunji nodded, not surprised. He took 3 immortal herbs out of his spirit tool and let them float in midair. The first one was entirely crimson, its leaves burning like flames and emitting a scorching aura. It was the infernal apricot. The second one was bathed in soft white light, with a holy halo flowing around the edges of its leaves. It was the holy light grass. The third one emitted a vast, majestic, and sacred aura with layers of petals, named Holy Heart. Following that, over 100 spiritual plants of various types appeared, colorful and shrouded in spiritual kai, floating together beside Kayan Deiliu. Seeing so many precious herbs suddenly appear, Kayan Deiliu frowned slightly, his eyes full of confusion as he looked at Kayan Zunji. "Jir, what is this?" "Father, give Xiao Zhu one of these immortal herbs every half-month and please guide her personally during the absorption. Just give her 2 of these spiritual plants every day," Kayan Zunji explained. "I need to go out for a while." Kayan Deiliu put all the herbs into his spirit tool and mused. "Jir, Xiao Zhu's foundation is already solid enough. These immortal herbs are too precious. It might be better to leave them for the younger generation of the spirit hall to cultivate some talent." Kayan Zunji shook his head, his gaze sharpening as he asked back, "Father, don't you want to see the angel god reappear in the world?" Kayan Deiliu's whole body jolted, and he suddenly looked at Kayan Zunji, an incredulous light flashing in his eyes. The angel god was his lifelong obsession and the hope of the Kayan family for thousands of years. Having Kayan Zunji say it so bluntly caused a storm to instantly surge in his heart. "I am certain that Xiao Zhu's talent will lead to the 9 angel trials. But even among gods, there are differences. The more solid the foundation, the stronger the combat power at the same level in the future. Don't you want to cultivate the strongest angel god?" His eyes were filled with longing for the future. "The strongest angel god," Kayan Deiliu muttered to himself, his expression becoming complex. That was a height he had never dared to hope for. There are ranks even among gods. If they could truly cultivate the strongest angel god, the glory of the Kayan family would reach an unprecedented peak. His eyes were first filled with confusion, but then a spark of fire ignited. It was the light of hope and ambition, shining with a burning intensity. Seeing this, Kayan Zunji took out 3 more immortal herbs from his spirit tool and handed them to Kayan Deiliu. "Father, you should take these 3 immortal herbs. You have been stuck in this realm for decades. Perhaps they can help you take a step further." Kayan Deiliu instinctively took a step back, avoiding the immortal herbs, and shook his head with a firm tone. "No. These immortal herbs are best left for Xiao Zhu. My realm is no longer something immortal herbs can easily shake." He had devoted his life to the angel godhood and had long since set himself aside, willing to pour all resources into the next generation. "Father, don't you want to defeat that person?" Kayan Zunji's voice suddenly rose a bit, carrying a hint of provocation. "In our Kayan family, which generation of direct descendants hasn't been a presence that dominated an era? Are you really willing to just stop here and let the regret continue?" The words, "that person," were like a thorn, piercing deep into Kayan Deiliu's heart. His expression instantly became incredibly complex, filled with unwillingness and a deeply hidden sense of humiliation. That was his lifelong rival. Kayan Zunji's words had accurately struck his deepest pain point. Beside them, Kayan Rengsu was a bit bewildered by the suddenly heavy atmosphere between the two. She curiously looked at her grandfather's changing expression, then at her father's sharp gaze, her little head turning back and forth. She didn't understand what they were talking about, but she could feel the tension in the air. Seeing Kayan Deiliu's resolve waver, Kayan Zunji immediately used spirit power to condense his voice into a thread and sent it into Kayan Deiliu's ear. "Father, the 9 angel trials ultimately require the high priest sacrifice simply because there isn't enough energy to open the gates of the angel temple. But if you can take a step further, and I also reach the Super Duo realm, plus the combined efforts of the 6 enshriners and the elders, could we still not force open the gates of the angel temple? Xiao Zhu is still so small, she can't be without her grandfather." The last sentence struck Kayan Deiliu's heart like a heavy hammer. He suddenly looked at Kayan Rengsu, looking at his great-granddaughter's innocent little face and the dependence and affection in her eyes, and the softest part of his heart was deeply touched. He had sacrificed too much in his life for the angel godhood. Did he really have to let his granddaughter experience the pain of losing a loved one? His eyes were filled with struggle, obsession with the godhood, unwillingness toward his rival, and even more so, love and reluctance for his granddaughter. All these emotions intertwined, making his gaze turn murky. A moment later, the aura on N.A.N. body suddenly changed. His aura, which was originally as deep and calm as an ancient well, was now like a huge rock had been thrown into it, setting off towering waves. That pressure, which surpassed the mundane and reached the demigod rank, was no longer deliberately restrained. It carried a resolve to burn one's bridges and a sharp edge, as if a sleeping dragon had finally opened its eyes, ready to face a new challenge. The air around him seemed to freeze, and even the light appeared to be distorted by this aura. Seeing this, a knowing smile appeared on N.A.N.'s face. He knew he had persuaded his stubborn father. "Father, I'll leave Xiao to you." He nodded slightly to N.A.N., said no more, and turned to walk out of the hall. His golden robe whipped up a sharp arc behind him, his steps firm and without the slightest hesitation. He had more important things to do for himself, for N.A.N., and for the future of the N.A.N. family. Inside the enshrinement hall, N.A.N. watched N.A.N. departing back, then looked down at the innocent N.A.N. beside him, his gaze gradually becoming incomparably firm. Chapter 4. Tracking in the Dense Forest, First Encounter with Tang. How Xiao Zhu is truly a treasure of a girl. N.A.N. flew rapidly, while sensing the subtle changes in his spirit power. A smile unconsciously curled the corners of his mouth. My spirit power, which I only just had a breakthrough in, has actually vaguely touched upon the opportunity for the next breakthrough. At this moment, he was flying towards the spirit beast forest in the Kiros Principality, his golden figure cutting through the vast sky and leaving behind a faint afterimage. 3 months ago, he had already ordered his subordinates to search for the tracks of Tang Hao, Tang Xiao, and N.A.N. Last month, news came back saying that their hideout had been found. However, N.A.N. did not act immediately at that time. He wanted to wait for the bond between these 3 siblings to grow deeper. Now that Xiao Zhu was receiving meticulous care from N.A.N., he finally had some free time, so he came personally to see this so-called deep sibling bond. Meanwhile, at the Ice and Fire Yin-Yang well, "Dugu Bo, what are you doing? Come here quickly. Don't think about slacking off." Porcupinefish Dulyuo's voice carried a hint of severity as he pointed to an open space not far away and said, "Hurry and transplant these herbs over there. We need to divide the areas. Every piece of land must be utilized reasonably. We cannot waste such a precious place." Hearing this, Dugu Bo's figure paused imperceptibly, then he lowered his head and walked over quickly, his voice carrying a hint of barely concealed humility. "Yes, my lord." His movements were slightly stiff as he carefully picked up a bundle of herbs and walked hurriedly towards the designated area, not daring to show the slightest negligence. The once solitary and unruly Dugu Bo in the spirit master's world now seemed like a different person, having reigned in all his sharp edges. "Move faster," Porcupinefish Dulyuo urged. "You just joined Spirit Hall. This is the time to perform well. Don't always look so lethargic." Dugu Bo lowered his head even further, his voice as soft as a mosquito's hum. "This subordinate understands. I will speed up immediately." Who could have imagined that 2 months ago he was not like this? At that time, he had been traveling for several months and returned to his residence full of joy, only to find his herb garden completely changed, with all his precious top-grade herbs gone without a trace. In that moment, monstrous rage erupted like a volcano in his chest. His eyes turned crimson, and the poisonous gas around his body surged uncontrollably, nearly corroding everything in the vicinity. He roared madly, but could only vent at the ruins. That sense of helplessness and despair nearly swallowed him whole. Just as he was on the verge of a breakdown, Porcupinefish Dulyuo appeared before him with 3 spirit Dulyuo and 13 spirit saints. Seeing these unfamiliar powerhouses, Dugu Bo instantly regarded them as the enemies who had destroyed his home. Killing intent surged in his eyes and he charged at them recklessly. However, the gap in strength was like a chasm. Before he could even release his spirit ring, he was easily subdued by the other party. A crisp slap landed on his face, followed by a punch to his chest, and finally, a kick that sent him sprawling to the ground. He fell heavily to the ground, vomiting blood and suffering severe injuries. He didn't even have the strength to struggle. He thought he would meet his death, but to his surprise, Porcupinefish Duilio took a liking to his aptitude. At that time, he was already an 85th level spirit Duilio, not very old, and possessed the potential of a titled Duilio. Porcupinefish Duilio extended an invitation for him to join Spirit Hall. At first, he was completely resistant, but after a few friendly interactions, Dugu Bo helplessly agreed. Afterward, Porcupinefish Duilio helped him draw out a portion of the long-accumulated toxins in his body, alleviating his pain. When he thought of his son and the possibility of his family continuing, his mental defenses finally collapsed, and he ultimately chose to submit, joining Spirit Hall. Porcupinefish Duilio looked at the busy Dugu Bo below and nodded slightly, a trace of satisfaction flashing in his eyes. 3 months ago, the Supreme Pontiff personally gave him a mission, ordering him to lead 3 Spirit Duilio and 13 Spirit Saints to guard the ice and fire yin-yang well. On one hand, he was to protect the immortal herbs and spiritual plants here, and on the other, he was responsible for cultivation and transplantation. A plant-type Spirit Duilio and 3 plant-type Spirit Saints were specially arranged in the team. They were all proficient in medicinal knowledge, which came in handy. What made Porcupinefish Duilio even more grateful was that the Supreme Pontiff had also bestowed an immortal herb upon him. Originally, his talent had reached its end, and it was almost impossible to advance further. But after consuming the immortal herb, his spirit power actually broke through to the realm of a 93rd level titled Duilio. He could clearly feel that the potential within his body had not been exhausted, and aiming for level 94 in the future was not an extravagant hope. You must know that every time a titled Duilio increases by 1 level, they can increase their lifespan by 100 years. Thinking of this, he felt full of strength, as if he were still young. Even if he were to aim for level 95, it was not without a chance of success. Life had seemingly never been so wonderful. The view returns to the sky above the spirit beast forest in the Kiros Principality. N.A.N. Zunji released his powerful mental force, like an invisible giant net, carefully probing every inch of the area below. Yet, he consistently failed to discover the tracks of Tang Hao and the other 2. His brows gradually furrowed, and a hint of confusion appeared on his face. What is going on? He muttered to himself, could Tang Hao and the others have already left? Didn't the scouts say that they were hunting a spirit beast over 50,000 years old here? He did not give up and continued to expand the search range, thinking to himself, I'll keep looking. If I really can't find them, I'll go to the nearby Spirit Hall branch to ask about their latest movements. His mental force spread out like waves, and wherever it passed, every spirit beast in the forest was frightened. 100-year spirit beasts were so scared that they curled up in the grass, trembling, not even daring to breathe loudly. 1,000-year spirit beasts ran around in a panic, desperately fleeing from this aura that made their very souls tremble. Even some 10,000-year spirit beasts woke up from their slumber one after another, lifting their heads vigilantly to gaze at the golden figure in the sky, their eyes filled with wariness, not daring to make the slightest move. 2 hours passed, and N.A.N. Zunji had almost turned this spirit beast forest upside down, yet he still hadn't discovered his target. Just as he was about to give up and head to the Spirit Hall branch, a wave of intense fighting fluctuations reached his perception. A sharp light flashed in his eyes, and he immediately reined in his aura, quietly approaching the center of the fight. The closer he got, the clearer the sounds of the fight became. Roars, bellows, and the booming sounds of colliding spirit abilities intertwined, shaking the surrounding trees until they trembled slightly. N.A.N. Zunji hid within a dense treetop and looked down. He saw that, in a clearing in the forest, a tall, muscular young man was fighting with a giant beast. The young man was dressed in simple black clothes, his short black hair standing up in an unruly fashion, his face resolute. It was exactly Tang Hao. At this moment, his whole body radiated violent spirit power, and yellow, purple, and black spirit rings rhythmically pulsed around him. Every strike he made carried the power to split mountains and crack rocks. And fighting against him was a giant tiger about 8 meters long and over 3 meters high. This tiger was pitch black all over, its body covered with dark golden stripes, like the hardest armor. Its head was massive, and its wide-open bloody maw revealed sharp fangs, while a pair of copper bell-like eyes burned with bloodthirsty red light. Most eye-catching was its tail, which was as thick as a steel whip, with a cluster of sharp bone spurs growing at the end, whistling as it cut through the air during its swings. Clearly, this was a dark golden dreadclaw tiger that had cultivated for tens of thousands of years, one of the overlords among beasts. Tang Hao nimbly dodged the dark golden dreadclaw tiger's pounce and bite, his right hand clenched into a fist, purple-black spirit power gathering on his fist, carrying a domineering aura as he smashed it fiercely into the tiger's flank. Roar. The dark golden dreadclaw tiger felt the pain and let out a deafening roar. Its massive tail whipped out like a lash, carrying a whistling wind as it aimed straight for the back of Tang Hao's head. Tang Hao reacted extremely quickly, abruptly lowering his body and narrowly dodged this fatal blow. The tail grazed past his scalp and slammed fiercely into a large tree behind him. With a loud crack, the tree, which took 2 people to wrap their arms around, snapped in response, and wood chips flew everywhere. The man and the tiger traded blows, fighting to a standstill. Tang Hao relied on his exquisite footwork and immense strength to circle and maneuver with the dark golden dreadclaw tiger. Meanwhile, the dark golden dreadclaw tiger relied on its formidable physical body and instinctive ferocity to launch continuous, fierce attacks. The surrounding trees had already been affected by their battle. Some were broken, others fallen, and the ground was covered with claw marks and fist prints of varying depths, a scene of total chaos. Qian Zunji watched the battle below quietly, a hint of amusement flashing in his eyes. It seemed he had arrived just in time. Chapter 5. Tang Hao and the trio, the time of an incense stick, passed quietly amidst the intense collision. Tang Hao's breath was already slightly disordered, but the battle intent in his eyes grew increasingly intense. He let out a low shout, and his entire body's spirit power erupted without reservation. 7th Spirit Skill, Clear Sky Avatar. Following this shout, his spirit power surged like a tidal wave toward the clear sky hammer in his hand. That already massive hammer instantly expanded, its size growing wildly at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a giant hammer 10 meters high, its body covered in ancient patterns, emitting a terrifying pressure. Tang Hao's figure also became a few notches taller, complementing the giant hammer, and every breath carried a sense of immense power. The dark golden dreadclaw tiger sensed a fatal threat. It roared toward the sky, shaking the mountains and forests, and the dark golden stripes all over its body suddenly lit up like burning flames. Its massive body suddenly swelled, its already sharp claws becoming even more ferocious, flashing with a metallic cold light, and an aura of extreme violence permeated the air. It kicked off the ground with all 4 limbs, causing the ground to instantly crack with spiderweb-like fissures, its massive body streaking out like a black bolt of lightning. With a sharp whistle that tore through the air, it lunged fiercely toward Tang Hao, its 2 giant claws crossing as it swiped, intending to tear everything in front of it into shreds. Clang. In his clear sky avatar state, Tang Hao gripped the giant hammer with both hands and smashed it down fiercely against the dark golden dreadclaw tiger's pounce. The giant hammer and the tiger claws collided with a boom, emitting a deafening roar, like thunder exploding in the forest. A violent energy shockwave spread outward from the point of collision, uprooting surrounding trees, sending gravel and broken branches flying, and causing the ground to collapse significantly. Tang Hao felt a massive, overwhelming force transmit from the hammer, numbing his arms and causing a dull ache in the webbing between his thumb and index finger. He could not help but retreat 3 steps, before stabilizing himself. The dark golden dreadclaw tiger was also sent flipping through the air by this immense force, its massive body flying backward. It only stopped after breaking several large trees, letting out a painful roar, with even a few faint cracks appearing on its claws. Not bad power. Kyan Zunji was hidden in the shadows, watching this earth-shattering blow. A trace of approval flashed in his eyes. The clear sky hammer truly lives up to its reputation. To be able to unleash power approaching a level 91, titled Dual Yuo, at level 85, it is indeed worthy of being the #1 tool spirit under heaven. The dark golden dreadclaw tiger was thoroughly enraged. It shook its head and let out another roar filled with violence, charging toward Tang Hao again regardless of everything. Tang Hao's eyes narrowed, seizing this fleeting opportunity, and he stomped his feet hard on the ground. His figure followed like a cannonball leaving the chamber, the giant hammer in his hand carrying the weight of 10,000 jun, smashing down continuously like Mount Tai pressing down on the top. Boom, boom, boom. The giant hammer collided with the dark golden dreadclaw tiger's body time and time again, each time accompanied by the crisp sound of shattering bones and the tiger's painful roars. Tang Hao's movements were as fast as lightning. Within a few breaths, he had smashed dozens of times, each strike aiming for vital points. Although the dark golden dreadclaw tiger was fierce, it gradually became exhausted under the violent attacks of the clear sky avatar. Its massive body was knocked backward repeatedly, its wounds increasing, and blood stained the ground red. Finally, Tang Hao gathered all his spirit power, raised the giant hammer high and smashed it fiercely toward the head of the dark golden dreadclaw tiger. With a puchai sound, the hard skull shattered upon impact, and the dark golden dreadclaw tiger's massive body twitched a few times before it completely lost all signs of life. Tang Hao deactivated the clear sky avatar state, and the giant clear sky hammer returned to its original size, which he casually stuck into the ground. He was covered in blood, his messy hair sticking to his sweat-drenched face, panting heavily with his chest heaving violently. Evidently, this battle had consumed a great deal of energy, and he looked quite disheveled. He stumbled to the side of the dark golden dreadclaw tiger's corpse, examined it carefully, and a trace of disappointment appeared on his face. Still no spirit bone. He muttered to himself, his tone carrying a hint of helplessness. The drop rate for spirit bones is truly too low. This is already the 300th 10,000-year spirit beast I've hunted, yet only 3 spirit bones have dropped. It's a pity for this tiger, its strength was not weak. After speaking, he shook his head, dragged his exhausted body, and turned to walk into the depths of the dense forest. So he really did come to hunt spirit beasts to farm spirit bones. Kyan Zunji leaned behind a large tree, watching Tang Hao's departing back, the corners of his mouth curled into an intrigued arc. No wonder he could collect a full set of spirit bones 2 years later, so it was accumulated bit by bit like this. However, I am quite curious that so-called child of destiny, Tang-san, is his arrival actually because of you, Tang Hao, or because of his mother, the Blue-Silver Emperor? He did not follow immediately, but waited for a moment until Tang Hao's figure had completely disappeared into the forest before slowly standing up and following unhurriedly. Tang Hao cleaned himself up briefly by a hidden stream, put on a set of clean clothes, and rested for another incense stick's time before heading in another direction. Passing through a dense forest, a quiet valley appeared ahead. Wisps of cooking smoke rose in the valley. Yin and Tang Zio were sitting beside a flat rock, and the meat roasting on the campfire was emitting an alluring aroma. "Brother Hao, over here." Yin was the first to see Tang Hao. She was wearing a pale green dress, her long hair like a waterfall, and a gentle smile on her face as she waved at Tang Hao. Yin, big brother." Tang Hao walked over, a look of exhaustion yet satisfaction appearing on his face. "Brother Hao, come quickly. I've finished roasting your meat. It's fresh off the fire and still hot." Tang Zio had an even more burly figure than Tang Hao with a hearty smile on his face. He picked up a piece of golden roasted beast meat and handed it over. "Come, eat it while it's hot." Tang Hao took the roasted meat, took a big bite and said indistinctly, Big Brother's skills are getting better and better. Yin quickly handed over a water skin and said softly, Brother Hao, eat slowly, don't choke. Just as the three were chatting, a slightly mocking voice suddenly came from the edge of the forest. Yo, I've long heard that the Haitian twin stars travel the world with a blue-silver grass spirit master. It's rare to see it today. The expressions of the three, Tang Hao, Tang Xiao, and Yin, changed drastically, and they instantly became vigilant. Tang Hao stood up abruptly, shielding Yin behind him. Tang Xiao also stood up at the same time. Both of them looked sharply toward the direction the voice came from, their spirit power fully charged and ready for battle at any moment. Only to see N.A.N slowly walk out from the forest. He was dressed in a luxurious Supreme Pontiff robe, his long golden hair shining brilliantly in the sunlight. With an ambiguous smile on his face, his eyes swept over the three of them calmly. When Tang Hao and Tang Xiao saw the newcomers' attire and appearance, their pupils suddenly contracted, and a stormy sea surged in their hearts. Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff, N.A.N, how could he be here? The vigilance of the two instantly rose to the extreme. Chapter 6. Identity revealed. The battle begins. N.A.N watched the tense figures of the two Tang brothers. With a faint, enigmatic smile on his face, his tone carried a hint of deliberate familiarity. My two nephews, what is the meaning of this? Your uncle has traveled thousands of miles to see you, so why do you look as if you are facing a mortal enemy? His gaze seemed peaceful, but it would inadvertently sweep over Yin behind Tang Hao, carrying an indescribable meaning. Tang Hao's expression darkened, his knuckles whitening as he clenched his fists. He said in a low voice, N.A.N, stop trying to act close. What exactly are you doing here? He did not believe that the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall would appear in this desolate wilderness for no reason. He must have an ulterior motive. Tang Xiao was relatively more composed. Although his eyes were full of vigilance, he still maintained outward etiquette, cupping his hands as he said, We did not know His Holiness the Supreme Pontiff would visit in person. May I ask what business brings you here? He deliberately emphasized the words Supreme Pontiff to distance themselves from him. Supreme Pontiff, the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall. Hearing those words, Yin's face instantly turned pale, and a thick sense of panic flashed in her eyes. Ever since she started traveling the continent with Tang Hao and Tang Xiao, she had been silently operating her blue-silver domain to sense her surroundings and suppress her own spirit beast aura. Upon hearing of the Supreme Pontiff's arrival, she instinctively pushed her blue-silver domain to its current maximum output. In an instant, with her as the center, the blue-silver grass within a radius of dozens of meters grew frantically. A faint spiritual light shimmered on the blades of grass, emitting a vigorous aura of life, yet also betraying a hint of undisguisable tension. N.A.N took all of this in, the smile at the corners of his mouth deepening, though his tone became even more cordial. My two nephews, you are being too distant. My father and your grandfather were sworn brothers. By seniority, I truly can be considered your uncle. Does an uncle need some high-sounding reason to visit his two nephews? As he said this, his gaze fell upon Yin once more, looking at her as if she were a rare treasure, making no effort to hide his interest. Tang Hao immediately stepped sideways to block Yin, completely cutting off N.A.N's line of sight, his eyes as sharp as knives. He retorted bluntly, Don't flatter yourself. Our Clear Sky sect and your Spirit Hall have always minded our own business. Where is this uncle-nephew sentiment coming from? If you have something to say, say it. If you're here to cause trouble, the two of us aren't afraid of you. He could clearly feel the uncomfortable scrutiny in N.A.N's gaze as it lingered on Yin. N.A.N was not angered by the words. He slowly turned around, standing with his hands behind his back, looking at the undulating mountain forests in the distance. His tone suddenly became heavy. Nephews, you know how much blood our human ancestors shed and how many sacrifices they made just to gain a foothold on this continent. He paused, his voice carrying a sense of vicissitude as if he had experienced it himself. Thinking back to those years, spirit beasts rampaged, and humans were nothing more than food in their mouths, barely surviving in the cracks. It was generation after generation of powerful spirit masters who, holding sharp blades and fueled by hot blood and fearless courage, fought and died against the spirit beasts. At the cost of their lives, they gradually drove those ferocious spirit beasts into these remote forests. They carved out a world where their descendants could live in peace. How difficult it was to establish this foundation. Tang Hao's brow furrowed, the unease in his heart growing stronger. He said deeply, "Kai Zunji, what is the meaning of bringing up these old stories?" Tang Zio also looked worried, his gaze moving back and forth between Kai Zunji and N.A.N. He felt that these words were pointed, and the alarm bells in his heart rang louder and faster. Standing behind Tang Hao, N.A.N's body trembled slightly, her face so pale it was almost transparent. Her hands tightly gripped the hem of her clothes, her knuckles turning white. Kai Zunji's words were like an invisible hammer, striking her heart over and over, making it almost impossible for her to breathe as fear flooded over her like a tide. Just then, Kai Zunji spun around, his gaze like lightning, piercing straight toward N.A.N. His tone was cold, devoid of any warmth, yet carried a certainty that saw through everything. "Blue Silver Emperor, do you still intend to continue your disguise now?" This shout was like a sudden clap of thunder, exploding in the ears of the three. N.A.N. felt as if she had been struck by a heavy blow. She jerked her head up, her eyes filled with unbelievable terror, her lips trembling, but she could not utter a single word. She never imagined that the identity she had hidden for so many years would be exposed so easily by him. "Kai Zunji, you have the wrong person." Tang Zio immediately took a step forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Tang Hao to block N.A.N. He said in a low voice, "She is just an ordinary blue-silver grass spirit master, not some blue-silver emperor. Stop trying to mislead everyone here." Kai Zunji sneered, his gaze sweeping over the Tang brothers. His eyes became sharp, carrying a powerful sense of pressure. "Tang Hao, Tang Zio, do you actually intend to harbor 100,000-year transformed soul beast?" His voice suddenly rose. "Do you realize that once this matter gets out, the entire spirit master's world will be shaken? At that time, let alone the two of you, the entire Clear Sky sect will be dragged down, becoming the public enemy of all spirit masters under heaven, doomed for eternity." His gaze was like a cold blade, as if he wanted to slice open their thoughts completely. Tang Hao and Tang Zio's expressions changed drastically, a storm surging in their hearts. Tang Zio had known since he first met N.A.N. 3 years ago. At that time, he was already a spirit duo. It was also from then on that N.A.N.'s blue-silver domain was always active. Tang Hao had long noticed N.A.N.'s uniqueness, but he had never imagined she was actually a 100,000-year transformed soul beast. A 100,000-year spirit beast, that was an existence the spirit master's world dreamed of. Once exposed, it would inevitably attract the greed of countless powerful experts. When that time came, let alone protecting N.A.N., even the entire Clear Sky sect would face total destruction. Tang Hao's heart felt as if it were being squeezed by an invisible hand, and Kai Zunji's words struck his heart like a heavy hammer. He faintly felt that what Kai Zunji said might be true, but as he looked at N.A.N. behind him, shivering and looking at him with eyes full of reliance, every moment of their 3 years together instantly flooded his mind. Her tenderness as she mended their clothes by the campfire, the way she looked worried and tearful when he was injured, her eyes silently encouraging him when he encountered a bottleneck in his cultivation. Without realizing it, this gentle and kind woman had already walked into his heart, becoming an indispensable part of his life. Regardless of N.A.N.'s identity, she is our friend and someone I, Tang Hao, will protect. Tang Hao took a deep breath, his gaze became incredibly firm. He took a step forward, and the spirit power around his body began to surge. No one will hurt her. Not even Spirit Hall, not even the entire Spirit Master's world. I, Tang Hao, will never back down. Seeing their resolute expressions, a cold light flashed in Kai Zunji's eyes, and his aura suddenly erupted. The pressure of a rank 96 super duo bore down like rolling dark clouds. The surrounding air became stagnant. "Nephews, are you certain you want to make an enemy of me, of Spirit Hall, of the entire Spirit Master's world, and even of all humanity, just for a spirit beast?" His voice carried a majesty akin to a final judgment. Tang Hao and Tang Xiao only felt a massive pressure rushing at them, as if an invisible mountain were pressing down on their shoulders, making even breathing difficult. But they did not retreat in the slightest. The spirit power within them circulated frantically, and two pitch-black clear sky hammers appeared in their hands simultaneously. The hammer bodies were ancient and heavy, emitting an overbearing and peerless aura that stood its ground against Qian Zunji's pressure. "It seems you are determined to have a showdown." Seeing this, a cold arc curled at the corner of Qian Zunji's mouth. "Very well. Let me personally weigh just how much these so-called Haitian twin stars are worth." Before his voice had even faded, the golden spirit power on his body rose like a blazing flame, and an even more terrifying aura spread out. Chapter 7. Hammer Falls, Shaking the Heavens, Six Wings. A startling vision. Tang Hao and Tang Xiao exchanged a glance, their battle intent rising in their eyes. The next moment, brilliant spirit rings simultaneously lit up on both of them. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 8 spirit rings pulsing in alternation. Radiating tyrannical spirit power fluctuations, they caused the surrounding air to vibrate and slightly distort. Sixth soul skill, Earth Impact. Tang Hao let out a low shout, his sixth black spirit ring suddenly lighting up as his clear sky hammer seemed imbued with the heaviness and grandeur of the earth. The hammer head was shrouded in a yellowish-brown halo, carrying the might to shatter the earth as it smashed violently toward Qian Zunji. Fifth soul skill, Mountain-Breaking Strike. Tang Xiao followed closely behind, his fifth black spirit ring shining brightly as his clear sky hammer concentrated an unstoppable force of destruction. It formed a pincer attack with Tang Hao's hammer from the left and right, sealing off all of Qian Zunji's space for evasion. Qian Zunji's eyes flickered slightly, his footwork shifting as he slid several zhang to the side, narrowly avoiding the pincer attack of the two giant hammers, with two loud boom sounds. Both clear sky hammers slammed heavily into the ground, instantly shattering the hard rock and causing the ground to collapse into two deep pits several meters wide, sending gravel flying and dust billowing. A bit interesting. Qian Zunji watched the exploding dust, his right hand slightly raised as a long sword, completely golden and flowing with holy light, materialized in his hand. He weighed the sword in his hand, his tone carrying a hint of arrogance. "My two nephews, since you have made the first move, then your uncle will play with you. I'd like to see if you have the qualifications to make me use a spirit ability." Arrogant, Tang Hao shouted angrily, completely enraged by the other party's disdain. His spirit power erupted beneath his feet, his figure rushing toward Qian Zunji like lightning, the clear sky hammer sweeping out with a whistling wind, aiming straight for Qian Zunji's waist. Tang Xiao circled from the other side, his hammer slashing vertically to block Qian Zunji's path of evasion upward. Qian Zunji remained unhurried, his long sword twirling a golden sword flower, precisely knocking against the handle of Tang Hao's hammer, with a crisp clang. Tang Hao felt a subtle force transmit through, slightly deflecting the trajectory of his hammer. At the same time, he floated backward, dodging Tang Xiao's vertical slash with fluid, effortless movements. Tang Hao used the momentum to turn, his hammer swinging toward Qian Zunji's back. Qian Zunji seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. Without turning, he backhanded his long sword, once again parrying the clear sky hammer. Simultaneously, he tapped his toes on the ground, leaping diagonally upward to dodge Tang Xiao's follow-up attack. The three began to grapple in the forest clearing. Tang Hao's hammer technique was fierce and domineering, each strike carrying an aura that could destroy the heavens and earth. Tang Xiao's hammer technique was steady and heavy, pressing forward step by step, not giving Qian Zunji any chance to catch his breath. The two cooperated seamlessly, one attacking and one defending, forming a tight offensive that forced Kyan Zunji to constantly dodge. Kyan Zunji held his long sword, his figure flickering unpredictably, like willow catkins in the wind. He rarely attacked proactively, yet he could always dodge the brothers' pincer attacks in the nick of time. Occasionally, when he parried with his sword, it was only a light touch before he used the force to retreat, always maintaining a subtle distance from the two, worthy of being the Hayashin twins' stars. Kyan Zunji nodded inwardly while dodging. This combat power is comparable to 2 level 91 titled Duelyuo. However, to me, it still poses no threat. Just right, let them accompany me to practice and familiarize myself with the power of this body. Tang Hao and Tang Xiao exchanged a glance, both seeing solemnity in each other's eyes. They knew that continuing like this would not hurt the opponent at all. Tang Hao shouted in a low voice, "Luan Paifeng." Tang Xiao immediately understood, and the two crossed figures, their clear sky hammers beginning to swing at an extremely fast speed. Hammer shadows piled up, enveloping Kyan Zunji like a fierce storm. Oh, is this the disorder-splitting wind hammer method? A hint of interest flashed in Kyan Zunji's eyes. It does have its unique aspects, but unfortunately, the weaknesses are too obvious. The fifth hammer fell, carrying a sharp whistle that tore through the air, smashing toward the top of Kyan Zunji's head. Kyan Zunji turned sideways and spun, narrowly dodging as the hammer smashed into the ground with another loud noise. The sixth hammer followed closely, its angle tricky, aiming straight for Kyan Zunji's knees. Kyan Zunji tapped his toes on the ground, his body rising, the hammer flying past his ankle and smashing into a large tree, the trunk snapping in response. The seventh hammer swept horizontally, carrying a rotating force, attempting to drag Kyan Zunji into it. Kyan Zunji twisted in midair, dodging like a nimble snake, the hammer wind sweeping past and causing his robes to rustle loudly. As the number of hammer strikes increased, the power of the disorder-splitting wind hammer method grew stronger and stronger. The 11th hammer, the 12th hammer, the 13th hammer. The hammer shadows became increasingly dense, and the spirit power fluctuations became more and more violent. Surrounding trees were constantly snapped by the hammer wind, and the ground was covered with dense pits. Kyan Zunji's evasions also became faster, his golden figure weaving through the hammer shadows like a startled swan, always able to dodge fatal attacks by a hair's breadth. Occasionally, he would counterattack with his sword, the tip pointing out like a meteor, forcing the Tang brothers to turn back and block with their hammers, disrupting their rhythm. The 26th hammer, the 27th hammer, the 28th hammer. The brothers' breathing became increasingly rapid, beads of sweat seeping from their foreheads, but the clear sky hammers in their hands swung faster and faster, as if they knew no fatigue. "My two nephews, is this all the capability you have?" Kyan Zunji's voice sounded amidst the hammer shadows, carrying undisguised sarcasm. "The successors of the number one sect in the world, just this." These words were like pouring oil on a fire, completely igniting the anger of Tang Hao and Tang Xiao. They let out a roar, and the clear sky hammers in their hands swung even faster, the 30th hammer, the 35th hammer, the 45th hammer. The hammer momentum became increasingly violent. Kyan Zunji was still dodging, only occasionally striking back with his sword, each counterattack precisely landing on the weak point of the hammer handle, making the Tang brothers' arms numb. The 70th hammer, 71, 72. Subscribe for more amazing novel audiobooks. Don't forget to like, comment, and share Infinite Novel Audio. The hammer shadows had connected into one piece, forming an airtight hammer net. Tang Hao glared at Kyan Zunji, who was dodging calmly within the hammer net, and rebuked. "Kyan Zunji, are you not the supreme pontiff? Can you only scurry away like a stray dog? If you have the ability, take one of my hammers head-on." Kyan Zunji easily dodged a hammer, his tone carrying a hint of mockery. "Nephew, it's not that I don't want to take it, it's that the speed at which you swing your hammer is too slow. I don't want to dodge either, but you keep missing me, there's nothing I can do." Tang Hao's eyes instantly turned crimson, anger burning fiercely in his chest. He looked at Tang Xiao and shouted in a low voice, "Big brother." Tang Xiao's eyes sharpened, and he nodded heavily, responding to his determination. The 79th hammer, the 80th hammer. The brothers' auras had reached their peak, the light from their spirit rings shining brightly, and their spirit power surged into the clear sky hammers like a bursting flood. 99, 81 hammers. The two roared simultaneously, pouring all their strength into the final hammer strike. The two clear sky hammers converged in the air, forming a huge phantom, carrying a powerful aura as they smashed fiercely toward N.A.N. This hammer strike condensed all the essence of the disorder-splitting wind hammer method. Its speed was as fast as lightning, its power as heavy as Mount Tai, and the air was compressed until it groaned under the unbearable strain. Blue veins bulged on Tang Hao and Tang Xiao's faces. The muscles on their arms knotted. They had clearly exhausted all their strength, sweat sliding down their cheeks and dripping onto the ground, splashing up tiny specks of dust. Watching the approaching clear sky hammer phantom, the mockery on N.A.N.'s face vanished, replaced by a smile of disdain. A flash of golden light appeared behind his back, and 6 pairs of huge golden wings suddenly unfolded, holy, majestic, and radiating glorious heavenly might. Just as the huge hammer phantom was about to strike him, the 6 wings behind N.A.N. flapped violently, his figure flying backward like an arrow from a bow, instantly creating distance. Boom, boom, 2 deafening loud noises sounded almost simultaneously. Both clear sky hammers slammed heavily into the position where N.A.N. had just been standing, the immense impact causing the ground to collapse violently, forming a huge deep pit over 20 meters in diameter. Surrounding trees were uprooted, gravel and soil shot into the sky like a fountain, and dust billowed, almost obscuring the sky. The violent energy shockwave spread outward, and Tang Hao and Tang Xiao were pushed back fiercely by this recoil force, stumbling back a dozen steps before stabilizing their figures, a trace of blood overflowing from the corners of their mouths, their faces pale. Seeing this, N.A.N. hurriedly activated the blue-silver domain. Countless blue-silver grass sprouted from the ground, gently binding onto Tang Hao and Tang Xiao's bodies, the grass blades emitting a soft green light containing pure healing energy, slowly repairing their damaged meridians and bodies. Tang Hao and Tang Xiao panted heavily, looking at the huge deep pit filled with dust, then looking at N.A.N. standing in the distance with wings spread, their eyes filled with shock and unwillingness. They knew that there was still an insurmountable gap between themselves and the opponent. The smoke gradually dissipated, and N.A.N.'s 6 wings flapped lightly behind him, standing in the void realm, his gaze calmly watching the 3 of Tang Hao. He spoke slowly. "My 2 good nephews, hand over the blue-silver emperor to me now, and we can still be considered family friends. You should be clear that you are not my match." Upon hearing this, Tang Hao's eyes burned with even greater anger, gripping the clear sky hammer in his hand tightly, his knuckles turning white from the force. He roared in a low voice, "Dream on. N.A.N. is our friend. If you want to touch her, step over our dead bodies first," Tang Xiao also said in a deep voice. "Your Excellency, Supreme Pontiff, N.A.N. has never harmed anyone. Please raise your hand high and spare her. This matter has nothing to do with the Clear Sky sect. We 2 brothers are willing to bear the consequences alone." N.A.N. shook his head, his eyes gradually turning cold. "Since that is the case, don't blame your uncle for not considering old feelings. Today, I will teach you 2 ignorant juniors a good lesson on behalf of Tang Chen." His eyes were as sharp as knives, carrying a condescending scrutiny. Before his voice fell, the aura on N.A.N.'s body began to climb continuously. At the same time, dozens of golden long swords materialized out of thin air around him, the blades flowing with holy light. Suspended in the air, the sword tips pointed in unison at the 3 of Tang Hao, radiating a chilling killing intent. Tang Hao, Tang Xiao, and N.A.N.'s expressions changed drastically. Feeling that almost suffocating pressure and the deadly threat coming from the golden swords, all 3 of their bodies trembled slightly. Yin's face was even paler than paper, and she subconsciously shrank backward. Tang Hao and Tang Xiao immediately shielded Yin behind them, both simultaneously circulating their spirit power, raising their own auras to the peak to share that terrifying pressure, attempting to buy a sliver of breathing space for Yin. Chapter 8, Sword of Judgment. Yin captured Tang Hao, looked at Yin, who was protected behind him, then at Tang Xiao beside him, who also wore a solemn expression, his eyes suddenly narrowing. His eyes instantly turned crimson, as if burning with two blood-colored flames, and a low growl, suppressed to the extreme, erupted from the depths of his throat, carrying a destructive madness. Roar. In an instant, the ink-black slaughter god N.A.N erupted from within his body, spreading outwards like a tidal wave. Wherever the N.A.N passed, the air was stained blood-red, and a chilling, bone-piercing killing intent permeated the surroundings. At the same time, the 8 spirit rings on his body emerged once again. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 their light flowing. Immediately after, the first 6 spirit rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 2 black, shattered inch by inch like broken glass, transforming into pure energy that merged into his body. Brother Hao. Tang Xiao looked at Tang Hao with a face full of worry, his eyes filled with shock. Exploding 6 spirit rings in succession would undoubtedly cause irreparable damage to his body, and might even completely ruin his path to cultivate. Slaughter God N.A.N, ring explosion, not a bad ability. Qian Zunji raised an eyebrow, a flash of surprise in his eyes. With this, Tang Hao's aura has actually surged to the level of 92, and combined with the slaughter god N.A.N, he can contend with a level 94 for a short time. Before he finished speaking, his mind stirred, and the dozens of golden longswords floating in the air divided into 5 groups, shooting towards Tang Hao in unison. The blades sliced through the air, emitting sharp whistles. The first group of swords aimed directly at Tang Hao's face. Tang Hao did not dodge or evade, his left hand forming a palm, and with thick killing intent, he struck the sword bodies. With a clang, the sword was deflected, flying past his cheek and taking with it a lock of black hair. The second and third groups of swords attacked from the left and right, aiming for his shoulders. Tang Hao's footwork shifted, his figure spinning like a top, and the clear sky hammer danced in his hands into a black shadow, knocking both groups of swords away simultaneously. The fourth group of swords stabbed cunningly from below. Tang Hao suddenly lowered his body, avoiding it narrowly. The blades grazed his abdomen, causing a stinging pain. The fifth group of swords followed closely behind, aiming straight for his heart. Tang Hao struck back with a hammer blow, knocking all the swords away. Just as Tang Hao knocked away all the flying swords, a sudden, intense pain erupted from his back. Brother Hao, Brother Hao. Almost simultaneously, the startled cries of Tang Xiao and Yin rang out. Qian Zunji had appeared behind Tang Xiao without anyone noticing and kicked out fiercely. Tang Xiao was caught off guard and was kicked away like a kite with a broken string, crashing heavily into the distant mountainside. With a rumble, the mountain rocks shattered and dust filled the air. After succeeding, Qian Zunji did not stop, his figure flashing as he instantly arrived beside Yin, reaching out to wrap his arm around her waist and taking her into the sky, hovering in midair. Tang Hao turned his head sharply, seeing exactly this scene. He looked down subconsciously, only to see a golden longsword piercing his chest, blood slowly trickling down the blade. He opened his mouth, a fishy sweetness surging up his throat, and blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. What shocked him even more was that the power within his body was being rapidly purified and dissolved by the sacred energy radiating from the longsword, vanishing as quickly as snow meeting the scorching sun. A wave of intense weakness washed over his body, and Tang Hao could no longer hold on. With a thud, he fell to one knee, his hand gripping the clear sky hammer trembling slightly, his eyes filled with unwillingness and anger. "Let me go." Yin, held in Qian Zunji's arms, was anxious and angry. Her cheeks flushed as she stretched out her small fists to beat incessantly against Qian Zunji's chest. though the force was like a tickle. Kyan Zunji had no expression on his face, only looking down at her. Tightening his arm to make it impossible for her to break free on the other side, Tang Xiao struggled to climb out of the pile of rubble, covered in injuries, with blood hanging from the corner of his mouth. He glared angrily at Kyan Zunji in midair, shouting with a hoarse voice, "Kyan Zunji, let go of third sister." His eyes looked as if they were about to spit fire, filled with bloodshot veins. Kyan Zunji glanced at him, his tone indifferent. "Let her go, based on what you can do." "Kyan Zunji, you only know how to sneak attack from behind. Are you even worthy of being the supreme pontiff of the Spirit Hall?" Tang Xiao staggered towards Tang Hao while angrily berating him. Every step aggravated his wounds, making him wince in pain, yet he still did not stop. "You can't even keep up with my speed. Do you have the qualifications to be my opponent?" Kyan Zunji's lips curled into a mocking smile. "If your skills are inferior, don't blame the means for being despicable." Tang Xiao's rage burned even hotter, but he could only force it down. He turned to look at Tang Hao, discovering that the golden longsword that had pierced his chest had disappeared, and quickly asked, "Brother Hao, are you all right?" Tang Hao gritted his teeth, struggling to stand up, and shook his head, his voice hoarse. "Big brother, I'm fine. I won't be defeated by Kyan Zunji using such despicable methods." At this moment, 80% of the power within his body had been purified, and the remaining 20% of spirit power was still struggling to suppress the injuries in his body. Every movement tugged at the intense pain. Kyan Zunji looked at the two wretched figures below and shook his head. His tone carried a hint of feigned, sorrowful regret. "Is this the so-called Haitian twin stars? You don't even have the qualifications to make me use a spirit ability. It seems the Clear Sky sect has finally declined." "Stop putting on an act," Tang Xiao shouted angrily. "Put away that disgusting face of yours. If it weren't for your cultivation being higher than ours, would we, two brothers, be afraid of you?" Kyan Zunji ignored him further, his gaze falling on N.A.N, who was twisting incessantly in his arms. The young girl's body was soft and warm, carrying a faint fragrance of vegetation. As she struggled, her hair brushed against his neck, bringing a slight itch. The corners of his mouth tilted up slightly, and he suddenly lowered his head, pressing down on the back of Yin's neck, and kissed her without a word of explanation. Yin's pupils shrank, her eyes filled with terror and anger. She struggled desperately, her hands pushing hard against Kyan Zunji's chest, but it was like an ant trying to shake a tree. "Kyan Zunji, you are courting death." Seeing this, Tang Hao and Tang Xiao below had their eyes splitting with rage, their anger erupting like a volcano. The slaughter god domain on Tang Hao's body surged again, the blood-colored light almost solidifying, and the remaining spirit power in his body burned crazily, his aura actually rising continuously. Kyan Zunji frowned, his heart filled with confusion. What's going on? How can Tang Hao still explode with power? This shouldn't be. The spirit power in his body was clearly almost completely purified by me. He clearly felt that Tang Hao's aura was rising rapidly. Level 90, level 91, level 92, level 93, and it was still climbing. Could it be that he hired a substitute player? A hint of panic inexplicably rose in Kyan Zunji's heart. This unreasonable eruption made him feel a sense of unease. He suddenly released Yin, not caring about her eyes that looked as if they wanted to kill him, and his aura erupted suddenly. The pressure of a level 96 super duo descended, and at the same time, he unfolded the angelic domain. The holy golden light spread out, colliding with Tang Hao's slaughter god domain, emitting a sizzling sound. Tang Xiao bore the brunt of it, fiercely suppressed by the pressure of the angelic domain, his knees softening. With a thud, he fell to one knee, his face pale, his whole body trembling. Tang Hao also felt his power being greatly suppressed, and the expansion of his slaughter god domain was immediately hindered. Sixth soul skill, Sword of Judgment. Kyan Zunji gave a low shout, the sixth spirit ring on his body suddenly lighting up, and the dazzling golden light condensed into a giant light sword, hacking down fiercely towards Tang Hao. Tang Hao roared, using all his strength to lift the clear sky hammer, smashing it up to meet the light sword. Bang! With a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering loud noise, the light sword and the clear sky hammer collided, and a violent energy shockwave spread to the surroundings, tearing several cracks into the ground. Tang Hao only felt an irresistible force coming from it, his arm instantly fracturing, and the clear sky hammer flew out of his hand. His body flew backwards, spraying a mouthful of blood in the air, crashing heavily onto the ground, sliding for dozens of meters before stopping. Countless trees along the way were snapped, and a deep trench was left in the ground. "Brother Hao, Brother Xiao," Yin cried out miserably, tears streaming down uncontrollably. She glared fiercely at Qian Zunji, her eyes filled with bone-deep hatred. Qian Zunji ignored her gaze directly, looking down at the heavily injured Tang Hao and Tang Xiao below, and snorted coldly. "Tang Hao, Tang Xiao, if you are not convinced, I will wait for you at Spirit Hall." After speaking, he wrapped his arm around Yin's waist again, his 6 wings flapping behind him, transforming into a streak of golden light as he sped away. "I must leave here quickly," Qian Zunji thought to himself. The power of Tang Hao's last strike was actually equivalent to the power of a spirit ability used by a level 95 titled Dual Yuo. If someone says this isn't a substitute player, not even a dog would believe it. Time to slip away. In the distance, Tang Hao's roar, filled with endless hatred, came. "Qian Zunji, I will kill you," the voice echoed in the mountains and forests. Chapter 9. Blue Silver weeps. Hell opens in a corner of the forest. A campfire was blazing, roasting 2 soft bones rabbits on a spit until they sizzled. Golden grease dripped down, splashing tiny sparks into the fire, and the rich aroma of meat wafted away on the evening breeze. Yin sat on a nearby stone, clutching her hem tightly, her gaze falling on Qian Zunji with complex emotions. Her eyes were full of anger, vigilance, and a hint of undisguised fear. Her lips were pressed into a straight line, and the blue-silver grass around her swayed imperceptibly, betraying her unease. Qian Zunji picked up a roasted soft bones rabbit, brought it to his nose for a sniff, and then nodded with satisfaction. Aromatic. Having said that, he began to gulp it down, his movements casual. "If you want to eat, take one yourself." Yin's voice trembled. She took a deep breath, suppressing the humiliation in her heart, and asked, "What exactly do you want to do?" "What is your goal?" Qian Zunji swallowed the rabbit meat in his mouth, looked up at her, and said slowly, "A transformed soul beast is a rare find, seen only once in a century. I've heard that the innate spirit power of a transformed soul beast is always level 10. In the spirit master's world, men have always outnumbered women, and women with talent and high cultivation are as rare as a phoenix. However, rest assured, I have no interest in your spirit ring or spirit bone." Having said that, he took another big bite of the rabbit meat. Yin frowned, her doubts deepening. "Since you don't want my spirit ring or spirit bone, what exactly do you want?" "I have nothing you could possibly value." "How can you have nothing?" Qian Zunji put down the rabbit in his hand, his eyes becoming burning hot, and he edged closer to Yin, step by step. "Your talent, your vitality, these are treasures that others seek but cannot find." Seeing this, Yin instinctively crossed her arms over her chest and shrank backward. She scolded. "You, don't come over." Because of her nervousness, her body swayed, and she slipped off the stone, falling onto the grass. Qian Zunji tossed the leftover soft bones rabbit aside, quickly stepped forward, crouched down, reached out to lift Yin's chin, and forced her to meet his gaze. "Give birth to an offspring for me, and I will set you free. You bastard." Yin slapped his hand away, rage burning in her eyes, tears welling up. "You might as well kill me." The smile on Qian Zunji's face faded, and his tone turned cold. "Blue-silver emperor, you wouldn't want something to happen to those 2 guys, Tang Hao and Tang Xiao, would you?" Yin's body stiffened, the anger in her eyes instantly replaced by fear. She looked at Qian Zunji in disbelief, her voice trembling with anger. You are shameless, shameless." Qian Zunji curled his lips in indifference, but his eyes grew sharper, carrying a naked threat. "Blue-silver emperor, as the ruler of the blue-silver grass clan, you wouldn't want the blue-silver forest to be destroyed, would you?" Yin's face turned pale as a sheet. She suddenly looked up, her voice carrying a trace of imperceptible trembling. "How do you know about the blue-silver forest?" That was the foundation of their blue-silver grass clan, a secret that must never be told to outsiders. Kai and Zunji's mouth curled into a mocking arc. Who would have thought that the seemingly weak blue-silver grass actually hides a blue-silver emperor with 100,000 years of cultivation? And dozens of blue-silver grass with 10,000 years of cultivation. As for those with hundreds or thousands of years, they are countless. These are all rare resources. Yin trembled violently, and tears finally couldn't help but stream down her cheeks. With the strength of Spirit Hall, if they really wanted to attack the blue-silver forest, they would have no power to resist, and Tang Hao and Tang Xiao would also be plunged into eternal doom because of her. Just as she was in a state of chaos, Kai and Zunji suddenly leaned over and pinned her to the ground. Yin lay on the soft grass, Kai and Zunji pressing down on her, the distance between them so close that they could feel each other's breathing and heartbeats. "Blue-silver Emperor, agree to me, and you can preserve the blue-silver forest and protect Tang Hao and Tang Xiao." His voice rang in her ear, carrying a bewitching magic. Countless emotions churned in Yin's heart, anger at his despicable threat, fear that something might happen to the blue-silver forest and Tang Hao and the others, despair, knowing she was powerless to resist, and a trace of unspeakable humiliation. Her lips trembled, wanting to say something, but she couldn't make a sound, only allowing tears to fall silently, soaking the grass beneath her. Kai and Zunji watched her painful struggle without saying another word, simply leaning down and kissing her. Yin struggled desperately at first, pushing hard against his chest with both hands, twisting her body in an attempt to break free from his control. But her strength was like a mayfly trying to shake a tree in front of Kai and Zunji. Gradually, her struggle grew weaker and weaker, and finally she went completely still, with only tears flowing silently, telling of endless humiliation and despair. The next moment, a holy golden light suddenly erupted from Kai and Zunji, and the angelic domain quietly unfolded. With him as the center, a white halo of light expanded rapidly, enveloping everything around it and cutting off all prying eyes from the outside. The holy aura emitted by the domain made the surrounding spirit beasts terrified. Whether they were birds in the trees or beasts in the grass, they all scattered and fled, avoiding this area from afar, not daring to get anywhere near it. In this corner of the forest, only that white halo remained, along with the silent surrender within it. Meanwhile, in Slaughter City. Inside the slaughter arena, Bibai Dong stood in the center of the arena, with 9 corpses lying helter-skelter around her, blood staining the ground red. She was dressed in black, her face devoid of any expression. The thousands of people watching the battle erupted into deafening cheers at the sight. Their eyes flashed with fanaticism as they roared and shouted, pushing the bloodshed and cruelty here to the extreme. "Slaughter King, I have completed 100 consecutive victories. I can now open the Hell Road." Bibai Dong's voice was cold, piercing through the noisy cheers and clearly entering the ears of everyone present. From the shadows, the Slaughter King's voice sounded, carrying a trace of eerie hoarseness. "Deadly Spider, have you thought it through? Not everyone can walk out of the Hell Road alive." Bibai Dong looked up toward the shadows, her tone firm. "My mind is made up." The Slaughter King's eyes suddenly turned red, like 2 burning blood-colored flames. The surrounding audience, seeing this, were so excited they were almost crazy, roaring, "Hell Road, it's the Hell Road." No one has ever seen the Hell Road open with their own eyes. Finally, we can broaden our horizons this time. However, the next moment, the excitement on their faces instantly froze, replaced by endless terror. An invisible force suddenly erupted from the shadows, crazily draining the Kai and blood from their bodies. "Ah, my body. What's happening? I feel so terrible. Help, help me," screams and wails rose one after another. Everyone realized with horror that their appearance was becoming shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye, their hair losing its luster, and their bodies withering rapidly. They wanted to run, but found their bodies pinned to the spot, unable to move, and could only watch as their vitality was drained away bit by bit. Some tried to resist, But as soon as they channeled their spirit power, it was devoured by that eerie force, and they died even faster. Panic spread like a plague, and the scene fell into chaos, yet no one could escape this deadly extraction. A few breaths later, the clamor completely subsided. The thousands of fanatic spectators had now all turned into shriveled corpses, like puppets drained of moisture, lying on the ground in a bizarre and terrifying scene. As the last bit of Kai blood was extracted, the ground in the center of the arena suddenly cracked open, and a black passage exuding a sinister aura slowly appeared. It was the Hell Road. Bibai Dong glanced at the dried corpses around her without the slightest ripple on her face, leaped and jumped into that darkness. Chapter 10. Second compression of spirit power riverside. The wind, carrying moisture, brushed past Yin's hair tips. She wore a beast control ring that emitted a faint silver light on her body. Her light green dress was stained with a bit of dust. She looked at Zunji, who was sitting cross-legged not far away, her heart filled with mixed emotions. It had already been 7 days. 7 days ago, she had been injured by Zunji, blood gushing out, and after a simple treatment of her wounds, she was brought by him to this unfamiliar riverbank. During these 7 days, Zunji had maintained his cross-legged posture, motionless. The thin energy of heaven and earth around him seemed to be drawn by an invisible force, gathering towards his body from time to time, forming a faint halo around him that flickered on and off. Almost there. Zunji's consciousness was focused within his body, feeling the changes in his spirit power. My spirit power has reached the limit of the second compression. Once little Zhu takes the spiritual plant today, and the system's feedback arrives, I will be able to successfully complete the second compression. He continuously guided the spirit power within his body to compress. Every attempt was accompanied by a tearing, bloating pain. But just at the moment of success, he seemed to encounter an invisible barrier. No matter how hard he tried, he was still one step short, unable to cross it. This one step of distance felt like it was separated by thousands of ravines, causing fine beads of sweat to seep from his forehead. Yin sat on a stone by the river, secretly observing Zunji. He had his eyes closed, his long golden hair hanging down, and the outline of his profile looked sharp and defined in the sunlight, surprisingly somewhat handsome. He actually seems quite good-looking. As soon as this thought emerged, Yin's cheeks instantly became burning hot, and she hurriedly covered her face with both hands. She cursed herself in her heart. What am I thinking? He is just a bad person. He always bullies me, and even uses the blue-silver forest and brother Hao and brother Xiao to threaten me. Yin, oh Yin, you cannot be so shallow. He is just a demon in human skin, a total bastard. She gritted her teeth, anger reigniting in her eyes, dispelling the inappropriate thought from just a moment ago. Meanwhile, Spirit Hall, inside the enshrinement hall. Little Zhu, this is today's spiritual plant. Dailiu held 2 stalks of fragrant spiritual plant in his hand and handed them to Rengsu. Rengsu looked at the familiar spiritual plant, her little brow slightly furrowed. A trace of reluctance appeared on her face, her little mouth pouting. She was clearly somewhat resistant to eating these things every day. Little Zhu, be good. Dailiu softened his tone with a coaxing implication. After you eat the spiritual plant, Grandfather will take you down the mountain to buy candied hawthorns. Okay, hearing the 3 words candied hawthorns, Rengsu's eyes instantly lit up. She nodded vigorously, her voice crisp. Okay. Little Zhu wants to eat the biggest and sweetest candied hawthorns. After saying that, she took the spiritual plant, pinched her nose and swallowed it in 2 or 3 bites, then tilted her little face up and said, as if asking for credit, Grandfather, little Zhu has finished eating. Dailiu looked at her well-behaved appearance, a gratified smile appearing on his face. He stroked her golden hair and praised, Our little Zhu is so good, truly a sensible and good child. After speaking, he bent down and picked up Rengsu, letting her sit steadily on his shoulders, and strode out of the hall. Let's go. Grandfather is taking you to buy candied hawthorns right now. Riverside. In Zunji's mind, the system's cool, sisterly voice suddenly sounded. Kayan Renksu has consumed 2 stalks of spiritual plant, triggering a critical hit effect. The first critical hit is 3 times, the second is 2 times, totaling a 6-fold critical hit. The medicinal power is being fed back to the host. As soon as the voice fell, a burst of energy, far more majestic than before, suddenly emerged from the void realm, gathering towards Kayan Zunji like a flood breaking through a dam. The surrounding energy of heaven and earth also became violent, forming visible energy vortexes that frantically poured into his body. Is this a breakthrough? Yin looked at the scene before her in surprise, her eyes filled with disbelief. He saw the halo around Kayan Zunji suddenly become bright, his aura climbing at an astonishing speed, the surrounding air trembling slightly under this aura. The water in the river even rippled, and the pebbles on the bank jumped slightly. A stick of incense passed quietly. Kayan Zunji slowly opened his eyes, a flash of sharp light passing through them. He stood up, stretched his muscles and bones, feeling the surging power within his body. A smile curled at the corner of his mouth. Spirit power intensity has increased by 40%, just like Little Zoo. Each compression can increase it by 40%. The second compression was finally successful, he asked in his heart. Sister System, Little Zoo has already compressed her spirit power 3 times. Why haven't I triggered any critical hit feedback? The system's voice carried a hint of teasing. Wasn't the spirit power already fed back to you before? Kayan Zunji frowned. I mean, can you directly feed back the number of spirit power compressions? Host, the system's tone carried a bit of banter. Then how about I just give you a god position directly, 1 step to the end? Kayan Zunji heard this and was overjoyed. Sister System, bring it on, I can handle it. Sister System. Seeing that the system did not respond again, Kayan Zunji sighed helplessly. Forget it, let's take it slow. Little Zoo is still young, it's better to cultivate her slowly. He turned around and looked at Yin not far away, his gaze gradually becoming burning. Kayan Zunji, what are you doing? Yin sensed his gaze, panicked in her heart, and retreated repeatedly. Bastard, don't come over, no. Kayan Zunji did not stop his steps. Holy light shone again around his body, and the angelic domain quietly unfolded, enveloping both of them and isolating everything from the outside world. 2 hours later, the angelic domain dissipated. Yin silently dressed herself, tears still hanging at the corners of her eyes, her face filled with unconcealable humiliation and sadness, her head lowered, not saying a word. Kayan Zunji straightened his clothes, looked at her appearance, and said in a flat tone, "Stop crying. If you cooperate more, after you conceive a child and give birth to him, whether you stay or leave will be up to you. Crying cannot solve any problems." Yin suddenly looked up, her eyes filled with anger, unwillingness, and a trace of despair. She glared fiercely at Kayan Zunji, her lips trembling, but she couldn't say a single word. Finally, she suddenly lowered her head again, her shoulders heaving slightly, and stifled sobs sounded by the river, filled with endless pain. P.S. Each time spirit power is compressed, spirit power intensity increases by 20 to 40%. The higher the aptitude, the greater the increase. The younger the age and the lower the spirit power rank, the fewer resources are needed to compress spirit power, but the higher the requirement for aptitude. Those who are not gifted are difficult to compress. The older the age and the higher the spirit power rank, the opposite is true. Those who can reach rank 96 have compressed their spirit power at least once. Rank 99, at least compressed twice. Kayan Dailiu, Bo Seixi, and Tang Chen are currently at the semi-divine rank. Spirit power compressed 3 times. Rank 99 is divided into 3 stages: ordinary, semi-divine rank, and quasi-god. Chapter 11. Clear Sky Urgent Reinforcement. Bibai Dong returns Clear Sky sect Tang Hao and Tang Zio, the 2 brothers, stumbled as they stepped onto the path home. Days of rushing had left them looking haggard and ragged. Covered in dust, their hair was as disheveled as withered grass, and their faces bore an unconcealable exhaustion and gauntness, completely devoid of their former spirit. In the back mountain training grounds, Tang Zhen was sparring with the Grand Elder of the Clear Sky sect. Tang Zhen held the Clear Sky hammer, and every strike carried the force of 1,000 jun, colliding with the Grand Elder's attacks to produce dull, thunderous roars. Waves of spirit power spread out, causing the surrounding trees to rustle. Father, Tang Hao and Tang Zio shouted hoarsely upon seeing the figures in the field. Unable to hold on any longer, with a thud, they both fell to their knees striking the hard stone floor with a dull sound. Please save Yin. Tang Hao raised his head, his eyes bloodshot, his voice filled with endless despair and pleading. Yin. Tang Zhen stopped his movements, furrowed his brows, and his face was full of confusion. A moment later, he suddenly remembered. Are you talking about that girl who has been training with you these past few years? What happened? You two brothers are both spirit duo. What kind of trouble could you not solve? Yin was taken by Qian Zunji. Tang Hao's voice trembled with anger, his fists clenched tightly, his nails almost embedding into his flesh. Qian Zunji. Tang Zhen's expression changed slightly. Why would he take Yin? Did you offend Spirit Hall? We. Tang Hao opened his mouth, his face showing signs of pain and hesitation, unable to speak. Father, Yin is a transformed soul beast, and she was taken by Qian Zunji. Tang Zio lowered his head and said in a heavy voice, his tone filled with helplessness. Tang Zhen and the Grand Elder looked at each other, a trace of shock flashing in their eyes. A transformed soul beast was a rare treasure seen once in a century, and for any spirit master faction, it was a huge temptation. Father, Yin is innocent, Tang Hao hurriedly defended, his tone urgent. She is kind by nature, has never hurt anyone, and usually wouldn't even bear to step on an ant. When she traveled with us, she always took care of our daily lives. When we were injured, she would use her abilities to heal us, and when we encountered weak spirit beasts, she would never let us kill them indiscriminately. He took a deep breath, his eyes full of earnestness. Qian Zunji grabbed her, not because of any grudges, but simply because he coveted her 100,000-year spirit ring and spirit bone. Tang Zio also hurriedly echoed, Father, Brother Hao is telling the truth. Although Yin is a transformed soul beast, she is kinder and more upright than many humans. We have been with her for 3 years and have long been like siblings. We beg you, Father, to find a way to save her. Tang Zhen was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. I understand. I will think of a way. Spirit Hall does not yet have any direct disciple who has reached the 90th level, so they cannot use a 100,000-year spirit ring for the time being. She should be safe. He looked at the disheveled appearance of his 2 sons, and his brows furrowed even tighter. You two go back and deal with your injuries, recuperate well otherwise. If you leave behind hidden dangers, it will affect your future cultivation. Also, you are the young clan leaders of the Clear Sky sect. Look at you now, disheveled, messy hair, mud all over your faces, what a disgrace. Thank you, Father. Tang Hao and Tang Zio hurriedly kowtowed, their voices tinged with a glimmer of hope, and then struggled to stand up and retreated. After the two left, the Grand Elder approached Tang Zhen, his eyes flashing with sharp light. Sect Master, a 100,000-year transformed soul beast, such an opportunity cannot be cheapened for Spirit Hall. Tang Zhen sighed, but Spirit Hall is powerful. With our Clear Sky sect alone, I am afraid it will be difficult to contend with them. Spirit Hall may be strong, but they cannot cover the sky with one hand, the Grand Elder said confidently. The 7 treasure glazed tile school, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, and the 2 great empires, I believe that for a 100,000-year spirit beast, they will definitely be willing to stand on our side. Tang Zhen pondered. But there is only one spirit beast, and only one set of spirit ring and spirit bone. How should it be distributed? For the 2 great empires, we can make a promise, owe them a favor, and in the future, if they need it, the Clear Sky sect will certainly help, the Grand Elder said slowly. For the 2 great sects, we will send them each a 10,000-year spirit bone. Don't we still have 2 10,000-year spirit bones that are about to be scrapped? With a little processing, they will be enough to form an alliance. A flash of determination crossed Tang Zhen's eyes, and he nodded. Grand Elder, I will leave this matter to you. The Grand Elder bowed and accepted the order. Rest assured, Sect Master, it will be handled properly. At the entrance of Slaughter City. Chrysanthemum Duoluo and Ghost Duoluo stood side by side, hidden in the shadows. Chrysanthemum Duoluo looked towards the entrance from time to time, his face showing a bit of impatience, gently shaking the chrysanthemum in his hand. Old Ghost, do you think the Slaughter King is playing us? They notified us half a month ago that the Holy Maiden had already stepped into Hell Road, but she still hasn't come out. Could it be that the Slaughter King has malicious intentions and is persecuting the Holy Maiden? Ghost Duoluo's voice was low and concise. He wouldn't dare. You dead ghost, can't you say a few more words? Chrysanthemum Duoluo glanced at him. His tone was full of complaints. We have been waiting for more than half a month. There is no movement at all. Who wouldn't be anxious? Ghost Duoluo ignored him and just stared quietly at the entrance. Several hours later, a figure finally walked out slowly from Slaughter City. It was none other than Bibai Dong. She was dressed in black, her body exuding a biting, killing intent, and her eyes were as cold as 10,000-year ice. That thick aura of slaughter made the air seem to freeze, and even Chrysanthemum Duoluo and Ghost Duoluo felt a trace of palpitations subconsciously. Your Highness Holy Maiden. Chrysanthemum Duoluo hurriedly stepped forward, his face full of smiles. We are here on the orders of the High Priest to pick you up. Bibai Dong looked at them coldly, her voice devoid of any warmth. I have reached the 80th level now, and I am going to the Stardew Great Forest to hunt a spirit beast and obtain my 8th spirit ring. Chrysanthemum Duoluo and Ghost Duoluo looked at each other, shock flashing in their eyes, and then bowed in response. We will obey the orders of your Highness Holy Maiden, and we will escort you to the Stardew Great Forest. Chrysanthemum Duoluo secretly exclaimed in his heart. Reaching the 80th level at around 30 years old, the talent of Her Highness the Holy Maiden is truly unprecedented and unheard of. Her future achievements are probably immeasurable. The three of them said nothing more, turning into three streams of light, rushing towards the direction of the Stardew Great Forest, their figures quickly disappearing into the horizon. Note, there are many mature immortal herbs in the ice and fire yin-yang well, nearly 100 mature immortal herbs, tens of thousands of 100-year spirit medicines, nearly 10,000 thousand-year spirit medicines, and hundreds of 10,000-year spirit medicines. Since the immortal herbs have not opened their spiritual wisdom, the energy contained in the mature immortal herbs is only equivalent to the volume of a spirit duoluo. Chapter 12. Gathering Storm, the angel descends Spirit Hall within the Great Hall. N.A.N sat on the elder's seat beside the Supreme Pontiff's throne, buried almost halfway by the mountain of official documents piled before him. Holding a quill, his brows slightly furrowed, he meticulously reviewed them stroke by stroke, occasionally pausing to ponder. Where on earth has that rascal run off to? N.A.N set down the pen, rubbing the space between his eyebrows, his tone carrying a mix of helplessness and anger. It's been nearly 2 months, and there's not even a trace of him. Just who is the Supreme Pontiff now, him or me? When he gets back, this old man will definitely have to give him a long-overdue dose of fatherly love. His eyes darkened, yet a cold, sharp curve lifted the corner of his mouth. Clearly, that so-called fatherly love would be anything but gentle. At that moment, a middle-aged man clad in golden armor with long golden hair strode into the hall. His posture was upright, and the faint silhouette of 4 wings flashed briefly behind his back. This man was none other than N.A.N, the leader of the Angel Legion. He casually cupped his hands and said, "Clan Chief, representatives from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect, the Star Luo Empire, and the Heaven Dew Empire have all now gathered at the Clear Sky Sect." N.A.N looked up at him, his gaze sharp. What is their purpose, gathering together like this? According to the Scouts report, it said the young clan leader has snatched a friend of the Haitian twin stars, N.A.N replied. A friend? N.A.N frowned, pressing further. Male or female? Female, bastard. N.A.N slammed the table fiercely, causing the documents on it to jump. Fury instantly flooded his face. When he gets back, just see if I don't break his legs. He took a deep breath but quickly calmed down, a flicker of doubt flashing in his eyes. Wait, that's not right. Even if Jir snatched a woman, It shouldn't be enough for the Clear Sky sect to stir up so many major powers to gather, should it? Qian Ling, are you hiding something else? Qian Ling hesitated for a moment before answering truthfully. It's said that woman is 100,000-year transformed soul beast. A transformed soul beast. Qian Dailiu's anger instantly dissipated, replaced by a hint of approval. He laughed heartily. 100,000-year spirit beast belongs to the capable. Jir has done well. He looked at Qian Ling, then abruptly changed the subject. Qian Ling, it's been 30 years since you took the position of Angel Legion leader, hasn't it? Qian Ling nodded in acknowledgement, reporting to the clan chief exactly 30 years to the day. You and I are of the same generation. You are also one of the few in the Angel family capable of possessing 4 wings. Qian Dailiu stood up, flexing his wrist, a flash of battle intent in his eyes. It's been a long time since we last sparred. Hearing this, Qian Ling immediately coughed dryly twice, a somewhat awkward expression appearing on his face as he hurriedly waved his hands. Ahem, clan chief, I just saw you were troubled by all this paperwork lately and thought I'd make a joke. Please don't take it seriously. He hadn't forgotten his youthful experience of being sparred into bed for half a month by Qian Dailiu. He certainly didn't dare to take up the offer now. Qian Dailiu didn't actually intend to press him. Withdrawing his aura, he said gravely, the upper 3 sects plus the 2 great empires. This force is not to be underestimated. I have decided to go to the Clear Sky sect personally. Handle the official business here yourself. If it's not finished, don't even think about going back to rest. As soon as his words fell, a golden light flashed around him. 6 pairs of enormous golden wings unfurled from his back, and his figure transformed into a streak of light, flying straight out of the great hall. Qian Ling watched the golden light disappear into the horizon, then looked down at the mountain of documents before him, a wry smile appearing on his face. Looks like I'll be spending the next 3 nights in the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Within the enshrinement hall, the gold crocodile Duoluo gazed in the direction Qian Dailiu had departed, his eyes full of confusion as he muttered to himself. Where is Big Brother going? It's been many years since he last came down the mountain, ever since Zunji took the Supreme Pontiff's seat. What could have happened that's worth him taking action personally? Clear Sky sect inside the council hall. The place was already abuzz with noise. Tang Zhen sat upright in the host's seat, with representatives from various powers seated on either side. From the 7 treasure glazed tile school, Ning Fengzhai, accompanied by the bone Duoluo Gu Rong and the sword Duoluo Chen Xin. From the blue lightning tyrant dragon sect, sect master Yu Yuanjin, with his younger brother Yu Luomian seated beside him. Representing the Heaven Du Empire were Prince Zhu Xing and the Empire's Grand General. From the Star Luo Empire came the Zhu family's clan chief Zhu Yi and the Star Luo Grand General. Everyone's expressions varied, yet all carried a degree of gravity. Tang Zhen cleared his throat, stood up, and said in a clear, loud voice, I am deeply grateful that all of you could grace the Clear Sky sect with your presence despite your busy schedules. I presume everyone is aware that the reason for inviting you here is for the sake of N.A.N, a friend of my Clear Sky sect's juniors, Tang Hao and Tang Zio. She was originally a 100,000-year transformed soul beast, but was forcibly abducted by the Spirit Hall's Supreme Pontiff, Qian Zunji. His intentions are condemnable. Ning Fengzhai's gentle voice carried a note of firmness. Sect Master Tang, you are too courteous. The Clear Sky sect and my 7 treasure glazed tile school have always been on good terms. Now that your esteemed sect faces difficulty, how could we stand idly by? The Spirit Hall's actions are so overbearing, bullying even the upper 3 sects. We absolutely cannot tolerate this. Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's sect master Yu Yuanjin, with his fiery temperament, slapped the table. The Spirit Hall's conduct grows more lawless by the day. 100,000-year transformed spirit beast, how can they just snatch her away? This matter concerns justice in the Spirit Master's world. My Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect supports the Clear Sky sect, Yu Luomian also said solemnly. My elder brother speaks rightly. My Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect is willing to advance and retreat together with the Clear Sky sect. Heaven-Do Empire's Prince Zhu Xing stroked his beard, speaking slowly. The Spirit Hall's power expands daily, long having threatened the rule of the two great empires. This time, their forceful abduction of the spirit beast shows utter contempt for the law. Although the Heaven-Do Empire does not directly involve itself in conflicts within the Spirit Master's world, we cannot tolerate such tyrannical actions either. We are willing to provide whatever support we can to the Clear Sky sect. The Heaven-Do Grand General also cupped his fists. My Heaven-Do Imperial Guard stands ready at any time, Star Luo Empire's Zhu Yi chimed in. Star Luo's stance aligns with Heaven-Do's. The Spirit Hall's ambitions are too great. If not checked, they will surely become a major calamity in the future. Regarding this matter, the Star Luo Empire is willing to lend the Clear Sky sect a helping hand. The Star Luo Grand General declared loudly, the Star Luo Iron Cavalry can march at any time. With everyone speaking their piece, a consensus was quickly reached. They discussed how to divide the responsibilities. The 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School and the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect would be responsible for directly engaging and containing the Spirit Hall's main force. The two great empires would provide support from the flanks, blockading the Spirit Hall's supply routes. The Clear Sky sect, as the main force, would apply direct pressure on the Spirit Hall. Everyone meticulously scrutinized every detail of the plan to ensure nothing went wrong. The atmosphere gradually grew more fervent. After an hour, they had finally devised a satisfactory plan and were preparing to adjourn, each returning to make their own deployments. Suddenly, a vast, sacred energy like a tidal wave swept down from the sky, instantly enveloping the entire council hall. The expressions of everyone inside changed drastically. They all circulated their spirit power to resist, only to be horrified to discover that the spirit power within their bodies was, under the erosion of this energy, being purified and dissipated like melting snow and ice. Not good. What kind of power is this? Panicked voices rang out in the hall. Fear was written on everyone's faces as they backed away, trying to escape this bizarre energy. An unprecedented sense of crisis enveloped each person's heart. Chapter 13. Angelic Aura, Clear Sky, Bad News, Sect Master. Enemies are attacking. A burly man shoved open the doors to the council hall. He rushed in with a panicked expression, his voice raspy from haste. Tang Zhen stood up abruptly and asked in a deep voice, "Who are they? How many came? What is their cultivation level?" The burly man panted, speaking incoherently. "I don't know, just one person. A moment ago, with a whoosh, a golden light flashed and they were hovering above our Clear Sky sect. Then that person started emitting a white light. The disciples covered by the light all went weak, and their spirit power just kept draining away." Tang Zhen's brows furrowed tightly. He said in a deep voice, "Let's go out and take a look." With that, he took the lead and stepped outside. Tang Hao, Tang Xiao, and the Grand Elder followed closely behind. Ning Fengzhai, Yu Yuanjin, and representatives from various other factions also rose and followed, their expressions grave. As everyone walked out of the council hall, the scene before them caused their hearts to sink. Hundreds of disciples below the Spirit Elder realm were collapsed on the ground, their faces pale as paper, lacking even the strength to lift their hands. Over 1,000 higher cultivation spirit masters stood in a circle, having released their spirits, watching the 50-meter diameter martial arts stage ahead with extreme vigilance. In the center of the martial arts stage stood a middle-aged figure. His golden hair cascaded down like a waterfall, his face was handsome, and his brows carried an innate majesty. He wore a white robe embroidered with golden patterns, surrounded by a holy halo, with the faint, shifting phantom images of 6 pairs of wings behind him. The 7th Elder, Tang Lai, hurried to Tang Zhen's side and lowered his voice. "Sect Master, there is a strange energy surrounding that person. Just now, one of our sect's spirit saints tried to step onto the stage, but as soon as they set foot on it, their spirit power inexplicably dissipated. They couldn't withstand it at all and had to retreat." Tang Zhen looked at that figure, a flicker of shock and doubt crossing his eyes, as if he had recalled someone from decades ago. He took a deep breath and walked toward the martial arts stage. "Tang Hao, Tang Xiao, and the Grand Elder immediately followed. Titled duoluos like Sword Duoluo and Bone Duoluo also followed closely behind, their expressions guarded. As soon as everyone stepped onto the martial arts stage, they felt an invisible pressure wash over them. The spirit power within their bodies began to melt away uncontrollably, like snow meeting a raging fire, and they couldn't muster any strength in their bodies. Prince Zuzing did not have high cultivation to begin with. At this moment, his face was deathly pale, his body went limp, and he was only saved from falling by the Heaven Dew Grand General beside him, who hurriedly supported him. Tang Hao, Tang Xiao, Zhu Yi, and the Grand Generals of the two great empires, all at the Spirit Duoluo realm, were all exerting their full spirit power to resist the erosion of that holy force, their bodies stiff as stone, making even the slightest movement extremely difficult. Ning Fengzhai was protected in the middle by Sword Duoluo and Bone Duoluo. Two powerful spirit power barriers isolated him from the holy force, so his situation was slightly better, but he could still clearly feel the terror of that pressure. Tang Zhen endured the discomfort in his body and cupped his hands toward the figure on the stage, his tone respectful yet cautious. I was unaware that the high priest had graced our clear sky sect with his presence. I failed to welcome you properly, and hope you will forgive me. The high priest has traveled from afar, and the journey must have been arduous. If you have any orders, I will certainly do my best to serve. Nephew, it's only been a few decades. Why so formal? Qian Dailiu spoke slowly, looking at Tang Zhen with calm eyes and a hint of a smile. You didn't address me like that in the past. You always called me uncle. As soon as he finished speaking, his aura surged violently. Tang Zhen immediately felt pressure like a mountain crashing down on him. Cold sweat instantly broke out on his forehead, and the clothes on his back were soaked through. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself not to retreat, his legs trembling slightly under the immense pressure. Uncle Qian. Tang Zhen said with difficulty, feeling the pressure on his body lighten considerably. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the other party had restrained his aura, otherwise he might really have been unable to hold on and would have knelt. As the sect master of the Clear Sky sect, how could he kneel to others? You have traveled thousands of miles from Spirit Hall. May I ask what brings you here? Uncle Qian, Spirit Hall. The people around them erupted into an uproar upon hearing these two terms. Everyone looked at each other, their eyes full of shock and disbelief. To be able to make the Clear Sky sect's sect master address him so respectfully as uncle, and to come from Spirit Hall, could it be? Ning Fengzhai stepped forward, cupped his hands in a salute, and asked with a tone of uncertainty, Your Excellency, could you be the former Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, Qian Dailiu? Qian Dailiu glanced at him and said indifferently, You are the current sect master of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, Ning Fengzhai. Ning Fengzhai bowed and replied, It is indeed this junior, Ning Fengzhai. Not bad, Qian Dailiu nodded slightly. Having 2 titled duoluos under your command is indeed a bit stronger than the previous sect master of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Tang Zhen looked at the people swaying and barely able to hold on below the martial arts stage, a flicker of worry flashing in his eyes. He hurriedly said, Uncle Qian, it is windy here, not a place for conversation. Why not retract your domain and we can go inside the hall to discuss in detail? No need. Qian Dailiu waved his hand, his tone indifferent. Tang Chen is not here, and I have no interest in your Clear Sky sect. I am here for that transformed soul beast. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's expressions changed drastically, and panic spread instantly. They had not expected that this top expert from Spirit Hall had actually come for Yin. Tang Zhen hurriedly said, Uncle Qian, my father did return once a few years ago, but he left in a hurry afterward. That transformed soul beast is a close friend of my son's, Tang Hao and Tang Xiao. She is kind by nature and has never done any evil. Could you please, for the sake of my father, spare her? Once a spirit beast, always a spirit beast. Qian Dailiu's eyes were sharp as knives, and his tone was firm. The rules of the Spirit Master's world dictate that the strong possess everything. Nephew, you surely understand this principle, don't you? You are talking nonsense. Tang Hao could no longer suppress his anger and shouted, "Although Yin is a transformed soul beast, she is more upright and kind than many humans. She should not be treated this way." Caiyan Dailiu glanced at him coldly. Tang Hao felt an irresistible, immense force strike him, as if he were being crushed by an invisible mountain. With a thud, he knelt on the ground, cracking the hard bluestone floor. Tang Xiao was furious at the sight and was about to lash out. A massive amount of white energy suddenly surged from Caiyan Dailiu's body. With him as the center, the area within 1,000 meters was instantly shrouded by the angelic domain. The holy light spread, and wherever it passed, the power of purification became increasingly powerful. In a single breath, all spirit masters below the Spirit King realm in the vicinity collapsed to the ground. The closer one was to Caiyan Dailiu, the stronger the power of purification. Tang Hao, Tang Xiao, the grand generals of the two great empires, Zhu Yi, Prince Zuzing, and others were either prostrate on the ground or kneeling on one knee, unable to stand upright at all. Bone Duoluo and Sword Duoluo exerted their full spirit power to resist the erosion of the holy force. Both of their expressions were grim as iron, and their spirit power barriers were trembling slightly. Behind them, Ning Fengzhai's face was pale, and even breathing became difficult. Tang Zhen and the Grand Elder gritted their teeth, their bodies trembling violently, yet they continued to struggle and support themselves. Every second was as agonizing as being in purgatory. The entire Clear Sky sect was shrouded in this terrifying pressure, plunged into a deathly silence of despair. Chapter 14. Enduring humiliation and retreat. Yin's fall. Uncle Caiyan, you and my father. You are the closest of friends. Tang Zhen's voice was strained, each word seeming to be forced out from between his clenched teeth, the muscles on his face taut. Yet in the depths of his eyes surged a tide of humiliation. It's just a spirit beast, isn't it? If Uncle Caiyan fancies it, your nephew will gift it to you right now. Having said that, his body swayed